I'm thinking we should, especially this.
At Citi Field in New York, the New York Mets play the Toronto Blue Jays. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Cure Auto Insurance. Isn't it about time to switch your car insurance and save? Visit Cure.com today. By Citi, preferred card of the New York Mets. By Geico, the #1 insurer in the New York market. And by Purple Bricks. Whether you're buying or selling your home, go to purplebricks.com and save yourself from real misery. And a pleasant good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you today as the Mets go for a sweep of their two-game series against the Blue Jays. Mets won last night 12-2. Ahmed Rosario had a big hand in that. The Mets have been trying to get Rosario going offensively. He's been going better the last week or so. Big time last night.
Well, 3 hits are huge. I think he needed that boost of confidence. But more importantly, Mickey Callaway on the road trip and in last night's game has decided he is going to be in the 9th hole. They're not going to move him around the lineup. They're going to stick him in that one spot because he's hitting better traditionally out of that spot. And you can see what he's done the last 6 games. He's being the player that the Mets thought he could be.
Hit it hard to all 3 fields last night. Mets made news today by finally putting Yoenis Cespedes on the disabled list. He last played on Sunday. That means the 10 days will take him out of the rest of this homestand. The Mets called up Philip Evans from Las Vegas, and Evans will be in the lineup and playing left field tonight in Cespedes' place. Meanwhile, Zach Wheeler goes to the mound for the Mets this afternoon, coming off a real good start in Cincinnati his last time out.
Well, it was nice to see because 2 starts ago he probably had his worst start of the season and then rebounded against the Reds, only giving up a run in the 6 innings and worked through a lot of trouble and got better as the game went along.
The veteran lefty Jay Happ made his big league debut against the Mets 11 years ago.
You know, it's going to be a bigger mark when he was with the Phillies. I remember that. He's going to be a bigger mark than last night. Jay Happ is an accomplished major league pitcher in the last year of a 3-year deal. 34-18 this time around with the Toronto Blue Jays.
No rain delays today, at least at the start. We're going to play in the rain as the Mets and Blue Jays wrap up their 2-game series. Mets at Toronto at Citi Field. Bring your umbrella. All the action on SNY. Saturday. Tickets are available in select seating areas. Purchase tickets at Mets.com/runs. SNY's Super Slow Motion is brought to you by your Mercedes-Benz Tri-State dealers. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. I like that alternate instrumental version of Meet the Mets.
I do too.
Zach Wheeler on a cool, rainy afternoon will take the mound for the Mets as they try to sweep the Blue Jays. First pitch coming right up. Very satisfying night all the way around for the Mets last night as they banged out 16 hits and thumped the Blue Jays 12-2. Well, we're playing in the rain today, and the young home plate umpire Nick Lentz was out for a conversation with Zach Wheeler.
I just love when umpires are proactive like this. He's telling you if the rubber gets wet, we'll get a towel to wipe it. If it gets wet out here on the clay at all, we'll get some speedy dry. Whatever it takes, you know we got to try to play this game. We got to play through these conditions. I'm going to help you get through it.
37-year-old Curtis Granderson playing day game after a night game in his old home. Luke Maile gets the start ahead of Russell Martin behind the plate. Gio Urshela, his second start for Toronto since he came over from Cleveland. Otherwise, the same group for the Blue Jays as last night against Zach Wheeler.
Wheeler really only has had one tough start, as you see his Toyota numbers giving him that inflated ERA. Has never liked pitching here, though. ERA over 5 at Citi Field.
Granderson 1 for 4 last night in his return to Citi Field. And Wheeler's first pitch of the afternoon, right on time at 1:10, is in for a strike, and we're underway. Curtis had a nice video tribute before the game last night. Tonight, today, it's like he never played here. The pitch is inside from Wheeler, a ball and a strike.
Expect anything to be close to be a strike today. Umpires are going to be ringing it up. to try to get this game in.
See the shift against Granderson. Donaldson and Smoke to follow against Wheeler. And the curveball fouled off. Nick Lenz, as we mentioned, the home plate umpire. Tony Randazzo, Wayne's cousin, is at first. So Wayne's not allowed to broadcast the game.
Very nice.
Lance Barrett at second. Bill Welke, the crew chief, at third. Only kidding. But it is his cousin. Here's the 1-2 coming. And Granderson takes it on the inside corner. Strike 3 call. 96 on the black from Wheeler for the first out of the day.
Here's a defense behind Zach Wheeler. Lobaton getting catching duties today. Guillaume starting in third base with Frazier out. Reyes not playing today, and in the outfield, Evans is getting his start in left field. He's been playing in the minor leagues. Conforto and right. Jay Bruce has the day off.
Phil Evans played 17 games in the minors in the outfield last year, 2 more this year, and that's the extent of his professional outfield experience. Just called up today to replace Cespedes on the roster. Josh Donaldson takes a fastball for a strike. Donaldson, the former MVP, 1 for 4 last night. When Wheeler has had trouble this year, it's generally been in the first inning. He had a clean first inning against the Reds his last time out. But even with that, his ERA in the first inning this year is 12. His ERA after that is 3.54.
He is a slow train as he gets going. He gets better as the game goes on, which is unlike many of the pitchers today.
Mets do not put on the full shift against Donaldson, keeping Cabrera on the right side of the bag. And Donaldson late on the fastball, and it's 1-2.
See his top hand slipped off. This is the kind of game that would never be started, but since the Toronto Blue Jays are not coming in again, a mini 2-game series, you got to kind of get this game in. The players know that also.
So they're going to play through what is a fairly light rain right now. Could get a little heavier as the day goes along, off and on. Lobaton sets up inside. Donaldson swings and misses, and Wheeler has back-to-back strikeouts to start the afternoon.
Again, lost his grip on the bat. It didn't matter. Perfectly placed. Sinking fastball from Wheeler inside. Called for by Lobaton, delivered by Wheeler.
Well, so far, the start to this game for Wheeler looking much like the one for Syndergaard last night. Noah struck out the side in the first, then staggered a little bit through the next 4 innings and got himself a win. Justin Smoke hitting third in the order. Smoke was 1 for 3 last night. Switch hitter batting left. Benner is a right-hand batter. Takes a strike, 0-1, and Wheeler has come in pumping strikes. All the foul weather gear coming in really handy today.
Got to appreciate the people with the ponchos. They don't have the umbrella, which upsets the view of the fan behind you. Very nice, not rude. I like that.
If you're going to keep the umbrella, though, you keep it low over your head. Don't hold it high. Smoke gets a hold of one deep right field. Back goes Conforto, back near the wall, and it's out of here. Justin Smoke with his 6th home run of the year puts the Blue Jays on the board. It's 1-0 Toronto. He took a couple of fastballs, and on 0-2 he crushes one off the facing of the second deck.
Well, 38 home runs for this young man last year in an all-star season where he finally turned it around. They've been waiting for him to hit his stride. He did last year, and he did not miss this fastball, which was middle, supposed to be up and in on the hands, and he jumped all over it.
5th home run Wheeler's allowed this year. Here's Teoscar Hernandez hitting cleanup.
You know, that's with the wind blowing in through the raindrops, a little colder day, and still off the facing. Shows you what kind of power Justin Smoke has.
He had never hit more than 20 home runs in a season before last year. Last year he had 38. He's now got 6 through the first quarter or so of the season this year. Hernandez 1 for 2 last night, and he pops one up into shallow center. Cabrera never saw it, but Rosario did, and through the raindrops, Ahmed puts it away to retire the side. But Justin Smoke's home run gives Toronto the early lead. Mets come to bat against Jay Happ, down 1-0. The Mets starting lineup today. Juan Lagares, who had a big night last night, up to the leadoff spot. Michael Conforto back in there against the lefty today. Luis Guillorme, first big league start. Phillip Evans, first big league start this season.
And James Anthony Happ. It looks like J.A., but that's not how he pronounces it. He pronounces it J. Happ. Those are his Land Rover numbers this year. The home run ball has really hurt him. 9 home runs given up by J. Happ this year.
Lagares tied a career high with 4 hits last night, including a triple. He drove in 3 runs, even stole a base. Hitting .357 now for the year. And he goes after a fastball away, and it's 1-1. As Dribble Cabrera on deck, then Wilmer Flores for the Mets against Happ, who, as we mentioned in the open, made his big league debut against the Mets June 30th of 2007 in Philadelphia. He gave up 5 runs in 4 innings that day, including home runs to Paul Lo Duca and David Wright in an 8-3 Mets win. He has 8 career starts against the Mets. This is his 9th. And Lagares fouls it off. 2 years ago, J. Happ had an incredible season, winning 20 games and losing only 4. But then he had some elbow problems last year. He was 10-11, still a 3.5 ERA. Had a pretty good year.
Yeah, close to 100 wins in his career, which is going to be hard for some of these young players to obtain.
He gets Lagares with a high fastball for the first out.
Defense for Toronto. See Urshela at shortstop getting the start today. Luke Mailey getting the start. Russell Martin on the bench. And in the outfield, same as you had yesterday, Kevin Pillar in center field is excellent.
Here's Asdrubal Cabrera, 1 for 4 last night. Starts the day 3rd in the National League with that .327 average. And with 13 doubles, he's only 1 off the league lead in that category. And he bluffs a bunt with the 3rd baseman Donaldson playing back.
Happ has an advantage in this kind of weather. He's the kind of guy that can pitch just with his fastball and cutter, make it kind of simple. He has a fastball that players just can't center.
And he throws his fastball 72% of the time, which in this day and age of increased use of off-speed pitches is pretty remarkable. That's that 2016 season we were talking about. Cabrera trying to keep his bat dry. Does a dry bat hit better, or is it just way less?
You just don't like to look at the water on the end of the bat. That's why.
As Drubal pulls one down to 3rd, and Donaldson handles it. And that's the 2nd out. And you can see Donaldson struggling with his throws. He's had some shoulder issues that he's had to fight through this year.
You know, certain pitchers on your staff are good mutters. Some guys need it 75 and sunny. What does it take to be a good mutter? First, Donaldson, good pick to his left. He's always been a good fielder, but you can tell it's pretty painstaking to watch him throw the baseball right now. The ability to simplify things, just not try to throw all 4 pitches, keep it simple, throw a lot of strikes, make them put the ball in play.
It's a struggle right now for Wilmer Flores. 0 for 4 last night, 7 for his last 41, and incredibly hitting just .152 against left-handed pitching this year as he takes a changeup away, 1-1. J. Happ, now 35 years old, came out of Northwestern, 3rd round pick by the Phillies in 04. Driven out to right center field, hit well. Pillar back on the track, makes the catch going away to retire the side. Flores hit it well. Pillar tracked it down. Happ with a 1-2-3 first inning after getting the lead. Second inning on Hervis Solarte leading off against Zach Wheeler as the planes fly low overhead on this overcast day.
Oh, I reminisce about Shea. That's what it was sounding like every 8 minutes.
Was it that well spaced?
Oh.
Solarte lifts one out to center. And Lagares, who for some reason has sunglasses on top of his cap. Now, why in the world would he go out there with sunglasses on top of his cap in this weather?
He's a positive person, Gary. He's a very positive person.
He just thinks sunshine is going to arrive at some point in the afternoon.
He had 4 hits yesterday. Anything could happen.
That is that's optimism beyond optimism.
I think it's style too. He likes the style.
1 out and nobody on. Here's Kevin Pillar, who went 0 for 4 last night. Pillar off to his best offensive start, hitting an even .300, leading the American League with 17 doubles. Toronto has lost 3 in a row, 8 of their last 11 to fall to .500 for the year after beginning the season 12-5. Pillar went around 1 and 2.
Boy, that was a good slider by Wheeler, sharp.
Luke Maile, the catcher, waits on deck. And Pillar goes after another one, and it's 1 and 2. And he needs a little stickum.
Yeah, I mean, all the batters' hands are having a hard time staying on the bat. I mean, at some point, if the game gets compromised, you can't play. But
well, with this being Toronto's only visit and their last game here, the Mets have an off day tomorrow, but Toronto doesn't. They go home to play tomorrow night. So they had to try and play through today, and that's what they're doing.
They're caught in a trap.
You see the last couple of starts for Zach, a bad one against the Rockies and a real good one in Cincinnati.
I mean, you don't try to play baseball this way until you have a game like this and you're really fighting to get the lead by 5. I mean, that's what you're doing just in case. Then after that, of course, you play accordingly and whatever happens, happens. But you don't want to be trailing after 5.
Two coming. And he lays off the slider, 3 and 2. Of course, if you're tied after 5 and the game gets suspended, then it goes into the nether world.
Maybe we can finish it up out there in Toronto.
In Toronto. That's probably what would happen, too. Mets will be in Toronto 4th of July, which is odd. 3-2 coming. And it's popped up on the infield. Guillorme coming in from 3rd. And he one-hands it for the 2nd out. Customize your experience to catch every moment this season. Get New York Mets home screen icons and features such as the MLB.TV Game of the Day, pitch tracking, in-game highlights, live radio broadcasts, stats, news, and more. Download MLB at Bat today. So 2 out and nobody on. Here's Luke Maile. Luke Maile, you saw his numbers there, 313, 14 RBI through only 64 at bats. Last year, Luke Maile in 46 games with Toronto hit 146. So he is having an unexpectedly strong start to the year. He's already had a couple of game-winning hits for the Blue Jays. Former Tampa Bay 12th round pick out of the University of Kentucky. Russell Martin is the primary catcher, but Martin's 35 now, and now he's gotten significant playing time. We saw Russell Martin do something last night he had never done before, and that's play an inning at shortstop in the major league.
I tried to find stuff to read about on his reaction to playing shortstop. I couldn't find anything. That's so excited.
So one quote from him, he
you?
said he was really happy to do it. You know, didn't like the fact that it came in a loss, but something he had always wanted to do. Of course, Martin was a minor league infielder and has played a lot of third base in the majors.
It's one of those waves of great athletes, real great athletes that became catchers.
Like Jorge Posada.
Yep.
Swing and a miss, and Wheeler has a strikeout, his 3rd of the day, as he finishes off Maile for a 1-2-3 2nd inning. Zach's retired 6 of the first 7 with 3 punch-outs. But the Blue Jays lead 1-0 in the second. Things are looking a little murky heading west toward the city. Hello. Michael Conforto leads off and drives one to deep center. Pilar back onto the track, reaching and makes a tremendous catch. Stumbling onto the warning track, looking through the raindrops, and finding that baseball in the webbing to rob Conforto of an extra base hit.
Well, we told you when we were announcing the defense, this guy is just so excellent. As good as anyone in baseball at his position. Fearless, caught that ball, and somehow was able to decelerate enough and put his hands in front of him to keep his face from smashing into the wall.
Fortunately, he didn't break his ankle as he tried to come to a stop there.
Oh, what a player.
So one very hard out to start the bottom of the second. Now Phillip Evans, his first big league at bat of the season. Evans called up today to replace Yoenis Cespedes on the roster. Evans made 6 starts for the Mets last year and hit .303. He was hitting .254 at Vegas this year with 9 home runs. He's been an infielder his entire career, mostly a third baseman, but they've been giving him some reps in the outfield, and he's playing left field in his first big league game of the season. Saw him a little bit in the outfield this spring as well. Still learning out there. And the curveball from Happ misses 2-1.
A couple curveballs from Happ, not even close. So that big looping curveball, not the kind of effective pitch you'd have on a day like this.
So he throws the fastball by Evans, and it's 2-2. Jay Happ, who started opening day for Toronto this year against the Yankees, his first career opening day start at age 35. 2-2 coming, and Evans strikes out for the second out of the inning. Second strikeout for Happ, who's retired the first 5 with some help from his center fielder.
You know, Jay Happ will belie with the numbers you see on the radar gun. He'll throw about 88 to 92. But you'll see swings that look like he's throwing 95 plus. It's just they don't pick up the ball from the tall, lean left-hander.
Now Luis Guillorme hitting 6th in the order against the left-hander. Puts his lifetime 1,000 batting average on the line. Guillorme had an RBI single in the 8th inning last night. He's now 2 for 2 in his major league career. This is his first big league start. Frazier progressing from a hamstring injury. So the Mets have used Flores and Reyes and now Guillorme to fill in at third base. J-Happ, a couple of tours of duty in Toronto after starting out his career with the Phillies. Fished in Houston along the way.
Northwestern guy.
Mets haven't faced J-Happ since 2015. The last time they faced the Blue Jays. Toronto trying to win in Flushing for the first time ever. 0-12. Jams Guillorme.
That's just honestly just amazing to me that you could go that long, but they've gone longer, haven't they?
16 straight against the Pirates at one time. That was in '86. You were there. Guillorme again fouls off an inside fastball. Well, since 1961, there are two other teams that won their first dozen home games against an opponent. The Phillies won their first 12 home games against the Houston Colt 45s.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the Orioles won their first 14 against the Mariners when they came in '77.
So they're beating
expansion teams.
Expansion teams. That doesn't count as much.
Guillorme slaps one toward the middle, and he'll beat out an infield hit, and now he's 3 for 3 in his big league career. He may never make an out.
I love it.
Fouled off a couple of tough inside pitches and just put the ball in play, and something good happened. Imagine that.
It was nice. They didn't have enough numbers on him, so they couldn't shift him. So he got a base hit up the middle. Nice.
Got to find out from Dave Freed, the last Met to start his career 3 for 3.
He's on it. He's so upset that you called him out on it. He was going to surprise you, but with his writing, that would be the surprising part.
Here's Jose Lobetón. I'm thinking Ted Cox.
Oh,
didn't he have a 3 for 3 or a 4 for 4 game to start his career? And Tom Bachorik's brother John. Didn't he go 3 for 3, and that's the only that was his whole career?
Yeah. If your brother's nickname is Wimpy, who I played with, what does that make John? I wonder what his nickname was.
Something a little,
more fuerte.
Yes,
más fuerte.
That's what I was looking for. Lobetón hitting 163, his first start in 9 days. Devin Mesoraco had himself a night to remember last night in his first home game as a Met. Reached base 5 times. He had a 2-run homer to cap his night. Last player to bat 5 or more times and reach safely every time in his first home game for a new team, Jay Bruce, his first game with the Reds in 2008. Lobetón strikes out, and that ends the inning. Third strikeout for Happ, who got some big help from his center fielder Kevin Pillar, who's going to win a Gold Glove one of these days. This might help his cause. Tremendous play by Pillar to rob Conforto of an extra base hit. 1-0 Toronto after 2. Martino talked with Keith Hernandez about his book and his journey from the field to the broadcast booth. That's worth listening to on the latest Shea Anything podcast. Search SNY Mets and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Here's the AL East from the last 4 seasons for the Toronto Blue Jays, and you see what they've done. ALCS 2 years in a row. Lost in the ALS. This is in division in the AL East.
Well, the Blue Jays have a division title over that span. They were a wild card the other year, and it just shows you how difficult it is to compete in that division year after year with the level of excellence.
Doesn't get easier this year, I'll tell you that.
Not with the 2 teams at the top, although the team at the bottom, I think, has surprised everybody just how dreadful the Orioles have been. But Toronto is somewhere right in the middle. Yankees and Nationals were suspended last night. They're hoping to complete the suspended game and play another game tonight.
So they got into the 6th in that game, so it reverts to the 5th, though.
No,
they're in the 6th?
Pick it up from the point where they stopped in the 6th. I don't know why it says 5.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that.
Now, the grounds crew has been out to try and soak up some of the moisture off the field. There's been so much rain in the Northeast, especially this year. It has affected everybody's demeanor and everybody's pitching and the schedule, and it's just wreaked havoc with everything.
It's honestly just starting to wreak havoc with it, because just the Mets alone have 2 or 3 doubleheaders already that they're going to have to find pitchers to pitch in those second games. I'm looking through the divisions. The one that really strikes me is the AL Central. Because Cleveland, you thought, was going to run away with it. No one's over 500, and because Cleveland is 1 game under 500, they've let Minnesota back in.
And Detroit. Detroit's only a game out. They're 19 and 22. And troublesome for the Indians. They have the worst pitching in the American League. Who would have figured that?
Maybe Brian Shaw was valuable, and Miller was out for a while too.
Here's Gio Urshela. Speaking of Cleveland, he was with the Indians last year and was hurt early this season. When he was ready to play, they put him on waivers, and the Blue Jays picked him up in a deal for a player to be named later. Urshela, a defensive specialist who would come in late in games during the Indians playoff run last year.
That's right. He would play when for Kipnis or Ramirez or.
Making his second start for the Blue Jays. He had never played much shortstop before coming to Toronto. He's been mostly a third baseman. Jay Happ on deck, and then Curtis Granderson for the Blue Jays in the 3rd. And Wheeler strikes out Urshela for the first out. That's 4 strikeouts now for Zach.
Like I said, it's nice to see when Wheeler gets off to a quick start. That's his 4-seam fastball that he's been painting on that outside corner. He's one of the few Mets pitchers, along with Jacob deGrom, as the game goes on, he gets better, more locked in.
Jay Happ, first plate appearance of this season, lifetime .096 hitter. Don't throw him a tomahawk. His only career home run is against Josh Colementor, the tomahawk thrower.
The tomahawk thrower.
And the curveball from Wheeler. He stopped the swing, and it's 1-1. By the way, you were talking about the Indians and Andrew Miller. He has really struggled since coming back from his hamstring injury. He gave it up again last night. A bases loaded walk that beat them.
It's almost like he's trying to pitch hurt. Their bullpen has had such a tough go that he probably is trying to come back a little early. And I mentioned Brian Shaw, who signed with the Rockies. He was such a big part of that bullpen. Pitching 75 games every single season, it seemed. He was there. Pedro Feliciano.
Strike 3 called, and Wheeler has back-to-back strikeouts to start the 3rd. 5 strikeouts first time through the batting order for Zach. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Old Dominion Freight Line, official freight carrier of MLB. Visit odfl.com for more information. Granderson with 2 out and nobody on, giving his pitcher time to get back to the dugout.
Get dry, I guess, because he didn't do anything at the plate. I mean,
a lost art, though. I know that you never thought it was that necessary. But
well, the reason I didn't think it was necessary because Mookie was leading off most of my career, and I did not want Mookie to have to take a pitch because Mookie was swinging really practically from the on-deck circle.
But that idea of hanging back in the on-deck circle, letting the pitcher take his time walking off the field.
You know, my favorite thing to watch, it wasn't my favorite thing to do when I got to the National League, was, you know, when the pitcher makes the last out and he grounds out as Guillorme goes for this ball to be in the stands, and he grounds out and the first baseman catches it, he would toss the ball to the pitcher. I always thought that was the coolest thing until I played, and then I was like, I'm making the last out. I don't want that ball. Don't toss that ball to me.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like it as much.
Of course, now nobody does that because the time between innings is so much longer. The pitcher, if he makes the last out, he goes back in the dugout and he towels off. And
that's our fault. That's not their fault.
No sense casting blame, Ron. It's the 0-2 to Granderson, and he just got a piece of the changeup.
You know, the great thing about leadoff hitters, and it certainly has changed, the position has changed, probably changed with Ricky Henderson, but you know, being able to relay what the pitcher has in a way of communicating with the other hitters, taking pitches and not being afraid to get to 2 strikes, having a good 2-strike approach, being a guy who could bunt and have that threat.
Well, now more and more teams have guys at the top of the order who they hope can put a run on the board.
That's right.
And certainly Curtis has been that guy. He was for the Mets for 3.5 years. Foul tip held by Lobaton, strike 3, and Wheeler strikes out the side in the 3rd. That's 4 straight strikeouts for Zach, 6 in the first 3 innings, and more diamond dry to come. On a day for Ducks. Wheeler bringing some heat. Triple duty today. They had to wrestle with the tarp last night through thunderstorms. Today it's keeping the infield dry as they attempt to play through this game in the rain. The rain just got significantly harder over the last few minutes, but no sign of a stop.
Keith has all these guys from the crew come to his house in October when the leaves fall down. Takes like 5 minutes to get it all raked up.
Do they do his flower beds too? Did they plant the Cespedes garden gnome in his backyard as well?
Don't touch the gnome.
The infield, even with all that diamond dry, is showing a lot of moisture right now. It is shiny, and anytime the infield is shiny,
that's right,
you're kind of in trouble. So I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to play under these circumstances, but for the moment the crew chief Bill Welke keeping it going. Zach Wheeler leads off and takes a strike from Jay Happ as we start the bottom of the third. It's raining harder now than it has at any point this morning and early afternoon. Wheeler 3 for 11 at the plate so far this year, and he loses the bat, and now you're starting to see the effects of the moisture. And I understand the imperative to get every game in.
Yeah, but you don't want to get someone hurt. I mean, you know.
It's the nature of the schedule, particularly with interleague play, that you have these one-off series where teams don't come back with very few off days to make the games up. And so Major League Baseball wants the umpires to push these games through when they can. Wheeler takes a call, third strike, and that's the fourth for Happ. But there's a certain point at which the integrity of the game is at stake, and the health of the players.
So true. And that's hey, listen, Bill Welke is a good umpire. He's been through many of these kinds of things. It's really the schedule that is keeping these two teams on the field.
We saw this, remember, in the World Series in 2008,
exactly,
where they played in untenable conditions between the Phillies and the Rays, and now Happ just slipped.
Yeah.
And let's see.
If the pitcher slips, then it changes everything, because then you've got a projectile that's moving at 90+ miles an hour that could hit someone in the head.
Well, now they're not putting the tarp on. They're calling the grounds crew out to do more work on the mound.
They they put that diamond dry everywhere in the infield but the mound and the catcher's home plate portion of the field. So now they're going to add it to the mound. Okay, you get the mud away, which is mud because the water has now infiltrated the clay, which becomes mud. And now they're going to do the diamond dry, and then we're going to see this probably song and dance all afternoon.
Well, the umpires are now coming together to talk to one another, and they've got the head groundskeeper who came out with the weather forecast earlier. Now they're talking to John Gibbons, who's concerned about his pitcher. Doesn't want to get him hurt.
Concerned about his pitcher, concerned about his players. You know, at some point you ask the umpires, well, you know, what's going on here? Is it going to rain all day? If it's going to rain all day, we can't play through this.
I mean, if you look at the area right behind first base,
yeah,
there are puddles there and rain hitting the puddles on the infield dirt. I mean, you can't play in conditions like that. Baseball should not be played in conditions like that. You've got multi-million-dollar athletes out there, and somebody's going to get hurt.
And even if they're not multi-million-dollar athletes, it compromises the game.
So what do we do? Right now, they're just going to grab more diamond dry and try and soak up the moisture, and now the umpires are going to puddle together and decide what to do next. The other problem is if you wait too long to put the tarp on, then it becomes almost impossible to get the infield in shape once you take the tarp off.
Well, it's almost like you have to do a reshuffling of the entire infield to get it dry again, because it's just going to sit below the tarp wet.
Now, fortunately, these fields drain much better than fields in the past. Remember the game we had at RFK Stadium when Joe West was the crew chief, and he let it go and go and go, and the infield was underwater by the time they covered the field?
You know, the California kids that played on the Mets teams when I played used to call Shea Stadium Lake Shea, because when it would rain there, it would be puddles in the outfield that there were certain positions you couldn't play in the outfield because there were puddles too deep to play in.
Well, the grass portions of the field are not the issue here, because they drain extraordinarily well, and they basically wick all the water down through the surface, and it goes underneath, and it can take many inches of rain per hour. The problem, of course, is the dirt portions, the mound, the home plate area, and the infield. Now the Blue Jays are coming off the field.
They're not going to put the tarp on. They're just going to come off the field, so they don't have to stand in the rain while they try to fix the field and make it playable.
And
that's what they're doing.
Mickey Callaway is going out to talk to the home plate umpire, Nick Lentz, and you know, everybody understands the situation here. Everybody knows what the schedule is, and they know the Blue Jays have to go home after this game and play tomorrow night, and they'd have to find another spot on an off day to reschedule it if they had to postpone this game for any reason. But I guess at this point, with the umpires cognizant of the fact that it's going to rain pretty much all day,
Yeah.
that if you stop it, you may not be able to start it again, and they're going to try as hard as they can not to stop this game. And that's, you know, whether that's right or wrong, that clearly is the imperative that they've been given.
But yeah, to get the game through 5 innings, I guess, is what they're trying to do, make it a 5-inning game.
Well, there's a lot more work to do to soak up this moisture, and that's why the Blue Jays have come off the field. And the grounds crew is doing absolutely the best job that they can with the numbers that they have. And I don't know how many dozens of bags of Diamond Dry they're going to have to go through to make this infield playable. But over the last, what's about an hour and a half since they pulled the tarp off the field, the infield has taken on a lot of water. And frankly, I think they waited too long to start the process. They waited till after the 2nd inning when they probably should have been out there the half innings previous to try and get ahead of the problem.
But that's not their call. You know, they have to wait. So
no, absolutely not.
These are the hard-working people. You know.
No, they're doing a fantastic job with what is available to them. But there's only so much you can do.
I mean, what's each bag? 25, 30 pounds. You can see how the mud has, and what that Diamond Dry does, folks, is once it gets into the mud, it will dry the surface, but then it gets very cakey, and it starts caking around your spikes, and then you got to try to keep your spikes clean, and it's it definitely compromises play. Is that behind first base?
Yeah, that's
that we're taking a look at now.
That big puddle.
Yeah.
Well, the game is not close to being official. We're only in the bottom of the 3rd with 1 out.
It is raining a little less than it was when they first started this process, though, so maybe we can get a little bit of a break.
Let's take a look at the road ahead, presented by Tri-State Buick. While the Blue Jays are not off tomorrow, the Mets are. Then they welcome in the Diamondbacks over the weekend. The Diamondbacks team that has suffered a cruel blow with the loss of A.J. Pollock for the next month or two. Marlins come in for 3 next week, and then the Mets go out on the road to Milwaukee and Atlanta. Well, for more on the Diamondbacks and their current predicament, let's check in with Steve Gelb. Steve?
Gary, never a good time to lose A.J. Pollock, but especially now for the Diamondbacks, who are really struggling to score. They got off to that great 21-8 start. We're averaging 4.7 runs per game, but over the last 13, they're just 4-9, scoring 2.5 runs per game and batting just 186 as a team. And yeah, the loss of A.J. Pollock's a big deal, but the bigger deal probably all season for the Diamondbacks has been that Paul Goldschmidt is having an uncharacteristically down year, hitting under 220, just 4 home runs, 12 RBIs after a 36 home run, 120 RBI season a year ago. So the offense really struggling. The one really positive part of the Diamondbacks game right now is their defense, especially and surprisingly Chris Owings, who was an infielder his whole career, made the switch to the outfield right now and is currently leading the major leagues in defensive runs saved. He'll get some time in center field, splitting with Jared Dyson now that A.J. Pollock is out.
Also, the Diamondbacks pitching has been tremendous, led by Patrick Corbin and Zach Greinke, and their bullpen may be the best in baseball right now.
Yeah, they have been. As far as Goldschmidt is concerned, if you remember how he played the last couple of months of the season last year, it was J.D. Martinez that carried that ball club. I think he was playing with a hurt hand. He did not tell anybody. And I think a lot of times when you play hurt, you develop bad habits. Those bad habits might have seeped into this 2018 season for Goldie.
Well, it's remarkable that with Goldschmidt not producing, that the Diamondbacks are still sitting in first place in that National League West. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the underperformance of the team that was favored to win that division, the Dodgers.
The Dodgers have one more win than the Marlins, by the way. It's Nick Ahmed, Daniel Descalso,
David Peralta.
David Peralta. Those are the guys that have been producing for them.
And Pollock, who had been their best player.
Chris Owings.
Right. But losing Pollock, that's going to be really hard for them to overcome. He was hitting .293, 11 home runs, 33 RBIs. And the shame for Pollock, of course, is this is now 3 straight years. He had that fractured elbow that he suffered right before the season 2 years ago.
Sliding it to home, right?
And then he had, I think it was a groin issue last year, kept him out for 2 months. And now this fractured thumb, which he hurt trying to make a catch. He jammed his glove hand into the ground trying to make a catch on an inside the park home run, and that's how he hurt it. They're the city probables for the series coming up now. DeGrom goes ahead of Matz in the rotation, and that's significant to split up DeGrom and Syndergaard for the first time this year. Zach Godley, who pitched great against the Mets last year. Patrick Corbin, who's off to a fantastic start, striking out the world. And then Greinke on Sunday.
Now remember, Godley, if you guys don't know Zach Godley, he throws his curveball over 50% of the time. And the Mets hitters so far this year have not been very good against the breaking ball.
Well, the effort to salvage this infield continues, and the grounds crew doing overtime and exalted work here. But it's going to be awfully hard to stay ahead of the curve. SNY's Super Slow Motion brought to you by your Mercedes-Benz Tri-State dealers. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
You know, when I was a player, all of us were so close to Pete Flynn and his crew because they used to wait right behind the plate when it was raining, and you would stand with them and they would tell you exactly what they expected. They used to get their weather reports from LaGuardia, and they would tell you exactly what was happening, what they were going to do, so you could kind of go back to the clubhouse and tell guys what to expect. But you got to know all those guys because those are the hardworking dudes that were just back there. And Pete Flynn's crew, they loved him, and he had been, of course, with the Mets forever.
Now, from a pitcher's perspective, we saw Jay Happ slip a moment ago. So, as a pitcher, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with this delay now? How does it affect you once we restart?
Well, I've done this before where this has happened. I used to go back in the clubhouse and just get on the bike, and not like ride the bike like you're trying to get a workout. Just keep your legs moving, whatever. You go to the batting cage if you want, if it's too long, and play some catch just to keep yourself loose. But there's no real one way to do it to make it to replicate what you're going to have to do on the mound.
What about when you come back out? Now, you've already slipped once, and do you risk changing your strides so that you don't slip again? How do you cope with that?
Big league hitters, you don't want to get embarrassed out there, so I don't think you can change it. I think you just have to go back to exactly how you pitched before, and if you slip, you're hoping the umpire will at least put the tarp on the field.
Well, it's not an official rain delay, but it is a field protection delay. We're going to take a little break here. It's 1-0 Toronto in the third. We'll be right back. Theme parks, including Universal's Volcano Bay Water Theme Park, a tropical paradise like no other. Plus, stay on site at Lowe's Sapphire Falls Resort. Just go to sny.tv/Toyota and enter today. Well, it's been about 14 minutes since a pitch was thrown here at Citi Field. It's not officially a rain delay. However, the grounds crew has taken that time to try and firm up the landing area for Jay Happ, who slipped on the last pitch that he threw.
Yeah, they got the diamond dry all the way, so it covers his whole stride. You see behind the mound there's that kind of I don't know what you'd call it, but it's a place where you can scrape the mud off your spikes. Never had those in the days I pitched. You used to use tongue depressors, or a good secret that someone taught me is you rub just light Vaseline on the bottom of your spikes, and the mud won't cake up on your spikes. It'll fall off.
By the way, I think the technical term for that device is scraper.
A scraper? So we had the spreader, and I couldn't come up with the spreader or the scraper this inning. Having a good inning, folks.
It's, you know, it's Occam's razor, my friend. It's always the simplest solution.
Oh, funny.
You know, several times during this whole process, the umpires have gathered together to have conversations. They just did it again behind the mound. I'm wondering what those conversations entail right now.
I think they're just reiterating, you know, their intention in this game, and the intention is, guys, it's going to rain all day. If we stop it, we're proverbially you know what. So what we have to do is just try to do this until we get this game official, and then after that we'll act accordingly.
Well, there's still some question apparently about the condition of the mound, because Happ is pawing at it, and the umpires are kind of taking a look, and the grounds crew is still working back there.
Well, they're fixing the scraper, as you informed me, and putting
I think they're replacing the scraper.
Putting a new scraper.
It's not raining very hard right now compared to what it was 10-15 minutes ago.
So, you know, what's funny for me, when I pitched, I used to step back off the rubber, so I would need that diamond dry behind the rubber to stop me from slipping, but guys don't do that anymore. They step to the side.
I never knew that they nailed the scraper in place.
The scraper has to be nailed, Gary, or it would be flipped all over the place.
But I would worry about somebody tripping over the nail. I'm fascinated watching this. This is something we never get to see.
That's right.
The insertion of the scraper at the back of the mound.
But see,
you got to keep it flat.
He didn't flat.
It's very hard to do it properly, and it's got a little bow in it.
You know, there's certain levels of scrapiness that people are able to get to. Great hard work by these men and women that are trying to get this field in playing condition. It's very difficult. Big, huge field to take care of, and I know the players appreciate it. It's hard to play through these conditions, but that's how it goes.
I know something else too, Ronnie.
Yeah.
Their work's not done for the day.
Oh, they're going to be doing this every inning.
There's going to be more of this coming. We've only played 2.5 or so innings, and it's taken them, let's see, we're now 17 minutes since the last pitch thrown in this game, and that entire time the grounds crew has been out working on the infield, the mound, and the home plate area.
It's funny, I was watching Josh Donaldson as he was trying to kind of do his footwork, get in his ready position, and see what kind of traction he had on the field.
Well, when we stopped this game, Zach Wheeler had struck out for the first out in the third, and Happ threw ball one to Ahmed Rosario. Happ slipped on that pitch, which is what led to this delay, which is now going on 18 minutes. And now Rosario will resume his turn at bat. So back at it in a relatively light drizzle now. And Rosario takes a fastball strike, and Happ's footing appeared to be okay. Ahmed, a big night last night, 3 for 4, drove in a couple of runs, got his average up to 261 on the year.
Like I said, this is a little easier game for Happ to pitch in because of the simplicity on how he goes about getting big league hitters out.
Fastballs here to Rosario. Juan Lagares waits on deck. Mets down 1-0 on the strength of a Justin Smoke first inning home run. Jay Happ coming off a dreadful outing his last time out against Seattle. Gave up 7 runs in 3 1/3. Late cut by Rosario to stay on the at bat.
I was going to say this would never happen in Toronto, but it already did happen in Toronto this year.
Big chunk of ice from the CN Tower fell on top of the Rogers Center roof, made a big hole and forced a postponement. Off the corner with a fastball, 2-2 to Rosario. Two coming, and he struck him out with a high fastball. That's 3 consecutive strikeouts for Happ against the lower third of the order. He's got 5 first time through the batting order, and we check in with Steve Gelb.
Gary, I just spoke with the head of the Mets ground crew, Bill Deacon, and asked him what he was talking about with the umpires. Essentially, there was a thick band of rain that they thought they just had to get through, and then they would be okay. The big concern by the umpires was that the field didn't get soft. As long as the field was hard, they could still deal with the puddles, which it was. So that's why the grounds crew was out there dealing with the puddles. They got through that thick band of rain. They feel like it's going to be okay the rest of the way. It took about 80 to 100 bags of Diamond Dry, though, to make that happen.
80 to 100
wow.
bags.
That's outstanding, Steve. Thank you for that.
I want to know, how many bags do they have stored up? I mean, what's
a silo full.
What's the stockpile like?
I will try and check on that, but I will say when I walked over here, there's probably, I'm looking right now at about, I don't know, 30 more, 40 more, so they've got plenty more to go.
Lagares bounces one foul, 1-2. Well, I don't know if it's because of the inclement weather conditions or just some great pitching, but there have been 19 batters in this game and 11 of them have struck out.
Wow.
6 for Wheeler and 5 for Happ, and he's ahead on Lagares, 1-2, and he goes down swinging on a slider, and so Happ strikes out the side in the third, just as Wheeler did. Strikeouts galore. Last through a pitch.
And then you know there's a clock on the pitchers. He beat the clock. Usually you throw around 8 pitches in between inning. He only threw 9, so did not throw a lot of extra pitches.
The crew chief Bill Welke went over to Wheeler before he started his warm-up for the inning, and I have to believe that he told him he had as long as he needed because of the situation. Josh Donaldson leads off in the 4th inning and takes a slider off the plate for ball 1. Donaldson struck out his first time up. It's the last time a ball was put into play in this game.
Well,
it was a single, the infield hit by Guillorme in the 2nd inning. Everybody else has struck out since then.
Donaldson put some diamond dry on his helmet. Very nice.
Either that or baby powder.
I've always heard the worst for the hitters is when their helmet gets so wet that it starts to drip in front of their eyes. Maybe there's a method to his madness.
Justin Smoak is responsible for the only run of this game. Waits on deck. Wheeler behind Donaldson 3-0. And he pours in a strike. And outside ball 4, and Donaldson's on with a leadoff walk. So Wheeler, after spending 27 minutes without throwing a pitch, walks his first batter of the game. And now Smoak, who cranked one off the facing of the second deck in right field his first time up for his 6th home run of the year and the only run in this game. Full shift on against Smoak. And Wheeler runs one inside ball 1. Here's the G pitch cast on the home run.
Tried to get to the top of the zone, but they needed it in. It was middle and up. So it was up towards the top. But whenever you're ahead in the count, you want that ball to be above the strike zone, not in it.
Changeup misses, so Wheeler all of a sudden having trouble throwing strikes.
Maybe should have took a little more, a little off right here to start this 4th.
He's throwing 7 pitches in this inning, 6 of them out of the strike zone. And now Smoak hits one out to left center, playable for Evans. His first chance out there. He staggers a bit but makes the play. Donaldson tagged at first, but he'll go back. Evans still getting the hang of play in the outfield, and you can see it there. You know, the happy feet.
He had Lagares out there, though, who was just kind of babysitting him just in case he got in a little bit of trouble. He did fine. He's a good athlete, Phillip Evans.
So 1 out and 1 on. Now Teoscar Hernandez, who popped out to short his first time up. It is still raining, but very lightly now, and certainly if it stays like this the rest of the day, there should not be any problems. And Hernandez swings through 1-0-1.
Well, throw over, very cautionary. I mean, Donaldson is not the kind of guy who's going to steal a bag.
Incoming. In the air, deep left field, headed toward the wall. That ball is out of here. Teoscar Hernandez with his 7th home run of the year, a 2-run shot. 2 home runs against Wheeler this afternoon and a 3-0 Toronto lead. So Happ came back after the delay and looked great. Wheeler has come back after the delay and has struggled to walk in a 2-run homer.
J. Happ's delay was around 14-15 minutes, 27 to 28 minutes for Zach Wheeler. And it's almost like he's a new pitcher this inning from the first 3. I'd say new, different pitcher.
Solarte screws himself into the ground.
Ball was supposed to be in and down. And Teoscar handled that ball inside. He got it in, just not down.
Right into the shift. Rosario playing near the bag and throws out the jogging Solarte. 2 out.
It's a couple of times in this series we've seen that. Either he's nursing an injury or just doesn't care. One or the other. I've always seen him play hard when he played in San Diego, so I'm going to opt for number 1.
Well, there you see the pallets of Diamond Dry at the ready. So I think we're safe. No matter how much rain might fall today, There is enough drying agent in those bags to take care of it all.
How many people does it take to bring some diamond dry off the top of one of those pallets? I don't have the answer to that, Joe.
That's why we're fully staffed here, Ronnie.
That's right.
Good slider by Wheeler, and it's 1-1 to Pilar, who popped up his first time up.
I had a job doing that for an entire summer at my father's machine shop. Let's just say one of the reasons I became a ball player.
that really?
Yeah.
Was that top of the list?
Oh, awful.
Pilar shoots one the other way, and he's got himself a base hit. There's the third Toronto hit of the game against Wheeler, and the first one that hasn't left the ballpark. A 2-out single for Pilar.
Little fastball in. It doesn't get all the way in, but not a bad pitch. Better hitting by Pilar.
So a 2-out hit for the former Cal State Dominguez Hills Toro. That's Toro as opposed to University of San Diego, the Toreros.
Toreros.
Cal State Dominguez Hills. It sounds lovely. I've never been there.
Southern Cal. Southern Cal sounds nice right about now with the weather you're having.
It rains there.
Very rarely, Gary. I ever get you out there for more than a year, you'll never come back.
I heard it pours. Up the middle, and a base hit for Luke Melly, and the inning continues. So back-to-back 2-out hits for Pilar and Melly, and Wheeler's troublesome fourth inning won't go away. Lobaton out to talk to Wheeler. Try and get him settled before he faces Gio Urshela. Urshela struck out in his first at bat. What is that?
The umpire pointing to
it's the mound visit.
Yeah. One of the funnier things that happens on the field today.
It shouldn't really take that long, should it?
That'll be official.
Oh, it's official. Just that 18-minute delay to take care of the infield, but got to count the mound visits. Although I have to say that the restrictions on mound visits have had the intended effect.
They really have.
They've eliminated the gratuitous visits to the mound, and it's made catchers and coaches think about it before they go out there, which is probably the most important piece. Well, so far, Wheeler's been able to overpower Urshela. He struck him out his first time up, and he's ahead here 0-2. Zach struck out 6 in the first 3 innings before the delay. He's given up a hit, 3 hits and a walk here in the 4th, and a couple of runs. And he gets Urshela on 3 pitches to end the inning. 7th strikeout for Wheeler, but the Blue Jays expand their lead. Young Teoscar Hernandez cracks a 2-run homer, his 7th home run of the season, and it's 3-0 Toronto in the 4th. Right side out when it's a little windy. Wind has died down a little bit, but yeah, that thing looks like it might be beyond repair.
Those are the umbrellas you get on Canal Street, Gary.
Now I hear Canal Street has become.
Oh, it is so different.
It's become a little more designer friendly.
It's not old Canal Street. Canal Street was fun. You walk up and down there and you could get whatever you needed.
Back in the days of the squeegee men.
Bad videos.
Toronto Blue Jays came into existence in 1977, same year as the Seattle Mariners. Back-to-back World Series titles in 1992 and 93. They made 2 ALCS appearances in the last 3 seasons. Took a step back last year. Got off to a strong start this year, sitting at 500 as the day begins. And the nice thing about the Blue Jays coming to town for a couple of days is we get to hear "Oh Canada."
So nice, isn't it?
It really is. You'll be heading north of the border in July.
That's right, with Mr. Apple. I'm going to go in the night before. I love Toronto to get a big league meal, so usually don't do that.
It's going to be odd celebrating the 4th of July in a different country.
There's no holidays in baseball in the summer.
But still, you would think that they would make an effort to make sure the Blue Jays are home on Canada Day.
That's right.
And that they're on the road on the 4th of July. As Dribble Cabrera hits one out to deep right center field. Pilar back in the gap has room and puts it away a step from the warning track for the first out. It's the 3rd deep fly ball that Pilar has caught.
I mean, it really puts into perspective how far the ball smoke hit, because those balls are hit pretty hard. One Pilar made off Conforto and this one by Cabrera, but the rain and the dampness, ball's not traveling.
Flores also went to the warning track in the first inning, so a few have gone, but not far enough for the Mets. Wilmer 0 for 5 in this series, and he takes a fastball down for ball 1. Change up on the corner, 1-1. Now it's amazing how Wilmer has gotten off to a rough start against lefties this year. Look at that compared to the last 3 seasons and how he's torn lefties apart. Small sample size, but generally eats lefties for lunch. However, not quite in sync right now. 2-2. Cracks this one to left center field. Granderson over in the gap, won't get there, and it short hops the wall. And Wilmer pulls into second base with a well-struck double. Just the Mets' second hit of the day.
Well, I'm going to have to show the numbers for Wilmer before he faces left-handed pitching, because he jumped all over that fastball. Short hop the left center field wall for a double. Always quick, and that ball upstairs he handles there.
Now Conforto saw one pitch from Happ and hit a long drive to right center that Pilar made a great play on. Michael's first at bat of this series.
Well, it's a swing with the ball coming right up at you. He tried to elevate the fastball to get the strikeout, but did not get it high enough.
Conforto coming off an encouraging road trip. He went 6 for 20 with 2 home runs in Cincinnati and Philadelphia, including that big go-ahead home run in the 9th inning on Friday. Still trying to get his season cranked up. takes the fastball for a strike, 1-2.
You know, Happ's numbers have been elevated. He came into May 4-1 ERA low and had 2 real bad starts to start the month. So that's why he's 4-3, but coming off a great April.
Well, his last start against Seattle, he lasted 3 1/3, gave up 7 runs and 10 hits. He's gone 3 1/3 so far today, no runs, 2 hits, so a little different story. One-two coming, and Conforto fouls off the slider. Jay Happ had an incredibly scary moment a few years ago. He was hit in the head by a line drive and was extremely fortunate. Suffered a bruise and a cut on his ear, and it was one of those where you just hold your breath.
Yeah.
And he was able to rebound from that. That's 5 years ago now. And he's come back to be a very productive left-hander.
You know, we see the C-flap for the hitters, and certainly there hasn't been enough R&D for the pitchers to try to protect them. And I don't think it lies in the hat personally. I think it lies in a set of safety kind of goggles that can protect the temple on the sides, protect the eyes, something that are not as obtrusive as the helmet or the big hat that we've seen some pitchers wear.
The Alex Torres hat. Broken bat grounder past the mound. Tough play. Barehanded by Solarte, and he gets Conforto for the second out.
How many times you see the bat goes further than the ball?
Barrel wound up in shallow right field.
Little sinking fastball that he runs in on the hands of Conforto and just ties him up. Left with kindling. And beautiful play by Solarte. I mean, slick field, wet ball, still makes the play.
Flores went to third, 2 out of the inning, and now Phillip Evans, who struck out in his first big league at bat of the season. Evans had 33 at bats in his late season trial with the Mets last year, and looked good. Nice short stroke, hits line drives. He's been hitting for more power this year at Vegas. Quickly down to the count, 0-2. His career high in home runs was 11. He did that last year at Vegas. He's got 9 this year. But Happ struck him out first time today, and he's got him down to the count, 0-2.
He's trying to exploit him up in the strike zone, up and in.
And he does again. And Evans strikes out for a second time. That's 7 for Happ in the first 4 innings. And the Mets are turned aside after 4, 3-0 Toronto. Pitcher in Toronto Blue Jays history. Dave Stiebel won 175 games for the Blue Jays. I think he had 2 prior no-hit bids that went to 2 outs in the ninth.
2 outs in the ninth,
right.
And one of them took a bad hop over his second baseman Damaso Garcia's head. I mean, a simple ground ball. He had, for folks today who watched the game, he had Corey Kluber kind of stuff, especially his breaking ball. And he went to Southern Illinois University. It's interesting, he was an outfielder, and they weren't very impressed with his outfield play, and he had to come in late in the game and pitch in relief, and that's when they signed him. They liked his arm.
Jay Happ leading off in the 5th inning. Steve lasted with the Jays until '92, and he was on that '92 team that won it all, but he was just a bit player at that time and didn't pitch in the postseason. But then he went to the White Sox the next year, made some starts, and then he was basically retired for 4 years. And then he came back.
That's right.
After not pitching in the big leagues for 5 years, he came back with the Jays in 1998 and pitched them out of the bullpen, made 3 starts, and then called it a career. I mean, that's loving the game. Could you imagine sitting out for 5 years and then coming back?
Let me see.
At age 40?
95, 2000. I would have been 40 in 2000. No. 2000, I was just starting this business. I was bad at that, too.
Good career choice. Well, Wheeler walks the opposing pitcher leading off in the 5th. So the 5th starts the way the 4th did for Wheeler, who had 3 really good innings, but after the long delay to fix the field has not fared well. Your Spectrum high-speed pitch. So Curtis Granderson comes up with a man on. And they're going to hold against Happ at first. Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Left-hand hitter at the plate.
Skip behind him. He's not going anywhere. Wet track. Doesn't want to blow out a hammy.
There's some things we see these days they are just not understandable.
Well, what's funny to me is the reason I find it funny is that, you know, we've really kind of pushed the science and mathematics of baseball, so you should have all of this kind of covered. This is old school baseball stuff, right? That used to happen where you'd hold runners on or whatever. I mean, he's not going anywhere.
First of all, nobody steals anymore.
That's right.
On a grand scale, right? There's so many fewer stolen bases than there used to be. You've got a pitcher who never runs the bases. It's a wet track. There's no chance in the world that he's going to try and steal.
And against the pull hitter in Granderson, who could rifle a ball down the line.
And you've got a guy in Flores at first base who's adequate, but he's not a gold glove. So every foot of fielding depth you can give him playing behind the runner works in his favor.
Now, the only way I'll argue in the defense, when you have someone at first base who is not experienced, sometimes they don't like to play behind the runner. They don't like to be shaded by the runner. They'd rather play in front. They feel like they have a better view of the baseball. I've heard that said before. So,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Granderson's been up twice today, struck out both times, looking in the first, swinging in the third. Josh Donaldson on deck.
See, I'm allowed to say something like that when Keith's not in the booth. So if I say something like that when he's in the booth, he looks at me with cross eyes.
Well, he'd be very offended at the very thought that somebody could think that. Granderson drives one to deep right field. Conforto back near the wall. Can't get it. It's off the base of the fence. Happ digging for third. He'll be stopped there. And Granderson has himself a long double. Sixth double of the year for Curtis. His second hit in this series.
Boy, Wheeler right on top of his game. 27 minutes from pitch to pitch between the 3rd and 4th inning. And the 4th and 5th are not treating him kindly. Only reason this ball stayed in the ballpark is Granderson had a lot of top spin on it. And hits the bottom of the wall and away from Conforto.
Dave Island out at the mound to talk with Wheeler. Nick Lentz marking it on his chart as a mound visit. So an RBI chance for Donaldson with his team already up 3-0.
I'm going to have to ask Josh when I get to Canada, Toronto. I think that he's doing that on purpose. That rosin in front of the helmet to keep the water off him.
Sure. Doesn't do much justice for the J on the front of the helmet, but you know,
It's not good for branding.
Well, I was thinking of the Audubon Society.
There you go. See, you're a big thinker.
Mets are going to play their infield about halfway here against Donaldson. You got the pitcher Happ running at third, Granderson at second with nobody out. Donaldson today has struck out and walked. He's scored a run. And Wheeler misses high with a fastball. Josh Donaldson, former American League MVP. With 41 home runs and drove in 123 in that MVP season in 15.
I said he started his career a little late because he was a catcher first before moving to third base.
Became a star in Oakland. And he will be a free agent at the end of this year. He'll be 33 years old. Justin Smoke waits on deck. Wheeler trying to keep this game from getting completely away. Second and third and nobody out. And that's lined toward the middle. A base hit for Donaldson. Happ will score. Granderson has to hold up. He'll go to third. Josh Donaldson with an RBI single, and it's now 4-0 Toronto. And nothing going right for Wheeler since that delay.
Well, we have seen 2 balls hit by Donaldson in this series, mini series. Yesterday for a double, and this one, thank God Zach was able to get out of the way. You were just talking about Jay Happ last inning. That was close.
Action's going to begin now in the Mets bullpen as Justin Smoke steps in. Robert Gazelman grabbing a baseball. Smoke delivered the keynote in this game, a home run off the facing of the second deck in right field. And he hits this one deep to center. Back goes Lagares, racing back. Warning track. He can't get to it. It hops against the fence. It stays in play, and that's going to allow 2 runs to score on a long double for Justin Smoke. He has a 3 RBI afternoon, and the Blue Jays have a 6-0 lead. And it has all come apart for Zach Wheeler.
Tried to get ahead, first pitch, fastball away, and Smoke just jumped all over it. Because the ball was hit on such a line, Lagares, who plays a shallow center field, never able to catch up to that ball. And watch the read by Donaldson. He reads it right away, puts his head down and goes. That's good base running right there.
If the ball had gone a little higher and bounced off the black, Donaldson would have had to stop at third, but because it hit off the blue fence, he's allowed to score from first. And now Teoscar Hernandez, who had a 2-run homer his last time up, takes a strike. Well, it has certainly been a tale of 2 games for Wheeler. The 3 innings before the grounds crew came out and did all that work on the infield, and the 2 innings since.
You know, at one, I was surprised that Callaway and Island didn't have a better eye when they saw him struggling a little bit in the 4th. Now here into the 5th, that they might not have someone up already because he has lost it a bit. But the thing I found unusual, and I don't know if the umpire said he could have more pitches, but he didn't take enough. He had 27 minutes in between. He only took 9 pitches. You usually take 8. He should have taken himself 20, 25 to warm up again. Because in this kind of game, you're only going to go 4 or 5, at the most 6 innings.
And not only are we playing in the rain, but it's not a warm afternoon. It's cool, it's damp, it's windy. It's not the kind of day when you can get loose again that easily.
I think you feel the pressure as a pitcher to go out there and kind of be ready quickly because it's raining and your players are out in the field, and you should not feel like that. Do not throw 1 pitch until you're ready to face a major league hitter, ever.
Now he's behind on Hernandez, 3-1. And he walked him. And so this rough inning continues for Wheeler. 5 batters faced, none retired. 3rd walk of the day for Wheeler, the 2nd in this inning. And Mickey Callaway is going to come get him. So Wheeler finds the going awfully tough after a long delay. Put a crimp in his afternoon. A 1-0 game has turned into a 6-0 game. And Wheeler will take his exit after 4 innings plus. Call to the bullpen brought to you by Verizon. Only solace is it's not an official game yet. Gazelman coming in. After going 3 innings in Philadelphia.
3 days in Philadelphia, he and Lugo, 8 times they pitched 2 innings or more. And I do find it interesting that Gazelman's in this game. I mean, it's 6-0, and Gazelman, one of your most important parts of that bullpen. But
well, it did certainly appear as though Mickey Callaway and Dave Allen were a little slow on the trigger as far as recognizing that Wheeler had not come back from the delay the same way that he started the game.
Yeah, I think you and I agree, and it's just our opinion. But he was so good early and so not after he came back that it was evident up here, but it might be different in the dugout.
Still nobody out of the inning. 3 runs home. Yangervis Solarte is 0 for 2. He's flied out and grounded out. Smoke at second. Hernandez at first with nobody out. And it's grounded toward the right side hole. Great diving stop by Cabrera. The backhand flip to get him. He had to go a long way to his left. And at that point, the only play he had was to first, and he put a little style point on that for the first out of the inning.
You know, he doesn't cover the ground he used to, but anything he gets to, he is El Mago, a magician. And to be able to, on the run, think of a play like that, which is so unusual. Almost any time you make this play, you would get up, right, pivot, and make the throw. But it's so muddy and so sticky. This is the only way to make the play.
Also, he had no idea of how hard Solarte might or might not have been running.
Yeah.
Here's Kevin Pillar, and he takes a slider for a strike. There's got to be something wrong with Solarte that he's not running full speed right now.
You know, like I said, I've watched him in San Diego all those years, and always played hard. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Pillar is 1 for 2 at a base hit to right field his last time up. And a half swing, and he did not go around. 1-1. This inning began with a walk to the pitcher Happ. Curtis Granderson hit one off the wall for a double. Josh Donaldson low-bridged Wheeler for a base hit to drive in a run, and then Smoke crashed one to the warning track in center for a double for 2 more runs. And the odd failings of Zach Wheeler at Citi Field continue.
I know.
Coming into the day, he had a career ERA in 32 starts in this ballpark of 5.12. Only 2 other pitchers who have had that many starts in their current home ballpark have that high a home ERA. One is Chad Bettis at Coors Field. You throw that out to Coors Field. The other is James Shields on the south side of Chicago. Wheeler's been great on the road, but for some reason this ballpark has haunted him.
Which is flipped. If you take Coors Field out of it, usually almost every pitcher pitches better at home.
2-2 to Pilar, and that's off the corner, 3-2. But this game started really well for Wheeler. Even though he gave up that home run to Smoke in the first inning, he looked dominant through the first 3 innings.
It's almost like he had 2 different starts. One he warmed up for with his regular kind of warm up, and he was excellent. And one with a 27-minute delay, he warmed up with 9 pitches and wasn't so excellent.
And Pilar went around, strike 3. He hoped to coax a walk out of that, but that was more than a half swing for the second out. So 2 away.
Well, this is one of the more easier calls. Slider away.
I mean, did he think he was going to get away with that?
Well, he tried. You can only try, Gary.
That was something less than an Academy Award performance. Here's Luke Maile, who had a base hit to center field his last time up, 1 for 2 on the day. If you're wondering what we're talking about, the delay, if you're just joining us, this game was in the bottom of the 3rd. Rain, which has been falling all day, came down a little harder. The infield was pretty much underwater, and the grounds crew came out and put about 100 bags of Diamond Dry around the infield, the mound, home plate after Jay Happ slipped throwing a pitch. The delay was about 18 minutes, but from the time Wheeler got the final out in the top of the 3rd to the time he took the mound for the top of the 4th was 27 minutes. And it clearly affected him.
Think of it this way. If you have a rain delay and it's 45 minutes, most managers take a pitcher out of the game. So he was at 27 minutes already. That's a long period of time.
Well, think about it this way. If they had put the tarp on the field and you had a 25-minute rain delay, the pitcher going back out there would have unlimited pitches to warm up, and he would have taken more. But in Zach's case, he's, what'd you say, 9?
9. I counted 9. Yeah.
And the first couple were very
50%
slow speed. So we'll have to ask after the game whether he would have been allowed to throw more, because it appeared as though the crew chief Bill Welke told him that he could. 1-2 coming to Maile, and the slider misses down, 2-2. Maile, the 8th man up in the inning. Gio Urshela is on deck. 3 have scored for Toronto in this 5th after 2 in the 4th. Toronto trying to win in Flushing for the first time ever. It's not yet an official game. Need 5 innings with the road team ahead. Another slider misses, 3-2. Zellman came in on Friday in back of Jacob deGrom in Philadelphia after deGrom threw just the 1 inning, Sunday I should say, and pitched 3 scoreless innings, worked around a bunch of traffic in that game. And he walks Maile to load the bases.
Well, not an awful walk with a 6-0 score. Base open. Urshela is probably not the same hitter as Maile, so, but nowhere to put him now.
Wheeler was able to dominate Urshela in his 2 at-bats. Struck him out both times. Smoke at third after his double. Hernandez and Maley both drawing walks. And now Urshela, the ninth man up in the inning. And he goes after a first pitch sinker, 0-1. Ronnie mentioned that both Lugo and Gazelman have gone at least 2 innings 8 times apiece this year. The only other pitcher in baseball who's had as many multiple inning stints is Josh Hader from Milwaukee, who's done it 9 times. But the Mets have certainly gotten plenty of usage out of a small number of relievers, with Gazelman and Lugo and Sewald all going multiple innings on multiple occasions.
Someone likes his slider today.
1-2 to Urshela, and he bounces one foul. It's like Robert got a trim earlier this week. It's trending. The hair is trending shorter.
Oh, you know, you go through different phases.
Short hair is working for DeGrom.
Just you and I don't go through any different phases anymore. We got the kind of same thing all the time.
Well, some of us, we don't really have options. 1-2 coming, and Urshela fouls off another one. You'd be pitching in the summer months with the long hair and the beard that I would think would be uncomfortable.
Well, the beard is a big thing. I don't know how guys can do it, honestly. I mean, I used to not shave for a start because when you shave, it would hurt because of the sweat. But not a beard. I mean, that to me would get too hot. But
I mean, you can see it for the relief pitchers, right? They're going out there an inning at a time. The Brian Wilsons, the Sean Doolittles, but
I tell you, there would be less guys in beards if they were out there for 8 innings.
Right.
You know, they're out there for an hour and 45 minutes.
Seventh pitch of the at bat coming to Urshela when Gazelman's ready to throw it. Pitcher Happ, who started this whole mess, is on deck. And Urshela pops one up into shallow center. Lagara still has those sunglasses on top of his cap. Most optimistic man in baseball. 9 men come to bat for the Blue Jays. 3 of them score 6-0 halfway through. Mets. Only 2 hits today. A single for Luis Guillorme, who gets a hit every time up in his major league career. And Wilmer Flores with a long double. But that's been it for the Mets against Jay Happ, who now has a 6-0 lead, 3 outs away from making this an official game.
And Nick Lentz, the home plate umpire, has come out and kind of observed Jay Happ and the Mets pitchers every time they've gotten on the rubber to see if they're comfortable with it, with their landing spot, and Happ looks like he's okay with it.
Meanwhile, the grounds crew is out, dropping the latest pallet of Diamond Dry on the left side of the infield.
You know what used to be the biggest thing in our day, and it always was a trouble when Oral Hershiser and I would pitch, because we used the same part of the rubber. But in front of the rubber in my day used to wear away. So there would be a deep hole in front of the rubber. Now they really pound it hard, and it's hard to dig in front of the rubber anymore. But he would always have to have it filled in. And it would drive me nuts.
You mean that hole that everybody who's ever pitched in Little League or high school has encountered? That hole?
That hole. Not as bad as
they never filled it in Little League.
Or they filled it in with the soft sand, so it just would be wiped away right away.
Well, here's Luis Guillorme, who has a chance with this at bat to do something that's never been done in Mets history. He's 3 for 3 to start his career. That's been done before. 4 for 4. It's never happened. Guillorme had an infield hit his first time up today. The only other Mets to start a career 3 for 3, Kaz Matsui.
Okay.
Steven Matz.
Oh, wow, that's right, against the Reds.
And Happ gets the half swing on the slider, and it's 1-1.
Matsui lead off that game with a home run.
Home run, first pitch of the season, leading off against Russ Ortiz in Atlanta. First pitch he ever saw in the big leagues. First pitch of the season. And he did that 3 straight years. Had a home run in his first at bat of the season.
Matsui had to make the cover the post, back over the post that next day. Had to. First game, 3 for 3. The next phenom.
It was a highlight.
Right.
There weren't many. 1-2 coming. Stopped by Millie, and it's 2-2. Jose Lobaton on deck. Then the pitcher's spot for the Mets in the 5th. And there is warm-up action. So it appears as though Gesellman will go just the 1 inning today. Jose Reyes has a bat and a helmet. Two-two. And Guillorme fights that one off. That's what he did his last at bat. A couple of inside fastballs he was able to fight off, and then he made enough contact to roll one to the middle of the infield for an infield single.
Impressive he's taking these at bats off a tough left-hander.
A.J. Ramos up in the Mets bullpen. And Guillorme hits one slowly. Happ's not going to get there. Now he does, and he gets the throw away in time. He took a bad angle to the ball, but went back and got it. And they have finally found a way to retire Luis Guillorme, whose big league average drops to 750.
It was ended up being a nice play by Happ because he was able to barehanded it and in one motion shovel it to smoke.
And he hydroplaned.
And then hydroplaned across the infield. No slip and slide needed.
Now Jose Lobaton has struck out his first time up, so that leaves J.P. Arancibia with the Blue Jays, the last big leaguer to start a career 4 for 4. Lobaton hits a slow roller. This time it'll be Donaldson to field it with the bare hand. He throws him out. 2 slow rollers, 2 outs for Happ in the 5th. And now Jose Reyes will pinch it, batting for Gesellman.
Lots of spread fingers, ball going in the hand, and then he gets the grip and makes the good throw.
Reyes started last night, went 1 for 5. One and 1 to the former Blue Jay Reyes. Friday night, Mets and Diamondbacks meet for the first time this year. Jacob deGrom makes the start against Zach Godley. 6:30 the coverage Friday night right here on SNY. Diamondbacks won last night 2-1 over Milwaukee to snap a 6-game losing streak. You know who's done a nice job filling in the rotation for Arizona is Matt Cook.
Yes.
The pitcher the Mets sent to Arizona when they got Addison Reed.
That's right.
After the deadline in 15. That's Cook, K-O-C-H, which is a last name that you can pronounce 19 different ways.
That's right.
Koch, Coke, Cook. There's probably other ways I'm not thinking of.
You're probably thinking about it, but you're just not.
And there's no way to know.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to know? Find that very confusing. Two to Reyes, and he reaches for the fastball and fouls it back. Jay Happ looking for his 5th win of the year. And he's held the Mets to just 2 base runners this afternoon. He's had some good defense played behind him. Now he runs a full count to Reyes. He hasn't walked a batter. He struck out 7. Happ has been striking out hitters at a higher rate this year than in the past. 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's not usually been his norm. Last year 8.8. He strikes out Reyes for his 8th of the night, and this is now an official game. 5 innings complete at Citi Field. 6-0 Toronto. Line score. The Blue Jays took the lead in the first inning on a Justin Smoke home run and then routed Zach Wheeler from the game after a delay. Get to Citi Field for Star Wars night this Saturday. The Mets take on the Diamondbacks. The first 25,000 fans in attendance will receive a Star Wars night Mr. Met is Han Solo bobblehead courtesy of Citi. Purchase tickets at Mets.com/tickets, and there it is. I mean, Chewbacca alongside.
Only Chewbacca would have a head bigger than Mr. Met's, I guess, right? I mean, Mr. Met always has the biggest head.
Well, if Mr. Met is Han Solo, who's in the Chewbacca suit? We don't know.
We don't know that. We don't know.
Keith?
No, he's got too much to do. You notice what he's doing the last few days?
I know he's exhausted.
Thanks for the coffee, Russ. Outstanding.
Russ is the best, man.
He bought that coffee maker for our booth because we didn't have coffee. And he just saves us on these kinds of games. You know what I mean, fans.
A.J. Ramos on to pitch the 6th inning. And Jay Happ will take the turn at bat. Happ walked to start that 3-run 5th inning for the Blue Jays against Wheeler. Wheeler went 4+, allowed 6 runs, 7 hits, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, 2 home runs. And he continues his stretch of 1 good, 1 not so good. That cutter by Ramos that's become such a big feature in his repertoire this year. Robert Gazelman pitched an inning, a walk and a strikeout, and now Ramos, the 3rd Met pitcher of the day. Happ takes a fastball for a strike, and it's 1-2. Curtis Granderson on deck, then Josh Donaldson against Ramos, who's been throwing more strikes lately. Worked a 1-2-3 inning each of his last 2 outings.
Well, I think he was higher on that pecking order when the season began. Lack of control and walking hitters dropped him down in that pecking order, and you fight your way back up.
I mean, right now, the way the Mets bullpen is structured, you've got the multiple inning guys, right? Gazelman and Lugo and Sewall. You got the lefty, normally Blevins. He's away right now. Bauman is in that spot. Pulled on the ground, and Happ's got a base hit. So he's aboard for the 2nd time. It's 2 straight days that the Blue Jays in their first interleague series of the year have had a base hit from a pitcher. Deck McGuire yesterday. He, for his troubles, got sent to the minor leagues today. And now Happ.
Had to bite the bullet, took all those innings up for the Blue Jays yesterday, and it cost him his roster spot.
Well, the only good part about McGuire being sent down, and obviously it's not good for McGuire, is that in his spot, the Blue Jays called up Danny Barnes. And the reason that's a good thing is because Danny Barnes, I don't know if he'll get in the game today, but he's from here. He's from Manhasset. Went to Manhasset High School.
South Shore?
No, North Shore.
North Shore?
Yeah. And he's also a Princeton kid. So,
nice.
So double bonus. Granderson drives one to right field, and Conforto won't be able to cut it off. Another extra base hit for Curtis, and again Happ will go 1st to 3rd. 2 doubles on the day for Granderson.
Well, trying to come inside Ramos with that cutter, never got there. And early in the count, Granderson, as we saw with his days with the Mets, always looking for something middle of the plate in to pull.
So a rough start for Ramos, 2nd and 3rd and nobody out. And here's Donaldson. Donaldson has walked and singled today. He's driven in a run. He's scored 2. And takes a slider for a strike. Ramos gets ahead 0-2. Happ has spent a good deal of his time today running the bases. Hasn't seemed to affect his pitching. Donaldson lifts one to right. Happ is going to tag. Should be deep enough. Conforto makes the grab, and Happ comes in to score. Second RBI of the day for Donaldson on the sacrifice fly. Granderson goes to third, and it's now 7-0. So Happ scores his second run of the day.
Doing it all this afternoon, and the bringer of rain, which Donaldson is called, in the rain, produces another RBI.
It is still raining, although not very hard. I don't think it has ever not been raining since this game began. Now Smoke has driven in 3 runs with a home run and a double. Mets bring the infield in. And Ramos misses with a breaking ball. Stopped by Lobaton to keep Granderson at third. This was the keynote address this afternoon.
I don't see many go up there.
We sat up there and had Angel Pagan almost hit one in our laps.
Well, that's for doing the game. That's right.
And now Ramos struggling, falls behind Smoke 3-0 with Teoscar Hernandez waiting on deck. Do you find there's some pitchers who struggle with the rain more than others?
Yes, absolutely, because it's a whole mental thing. You know, you got to be mentally tough when you're pitching in this kind of weather.
What about the physical part of it in terms of how complicated your delivery is?
One second. Ramos, after the 3-0 pitch, kind of looked like he was hurt. I thought he was just acting like he was mad at going 3-0 on Smoke. So the little delay there to see if he was hurt or not, and he waved them off. I'm fine.
Mickey Callaway took a step out of the dugout just to be sure. And there's a strike.
You know, I never had any problem pitching. Watch 2 pitches ago on the 3-0 count. Watch how he comes off the mound like he's shaking up a little bit, but he's not. He's just mad at himself for going 3-0 on Smoke. Ramos has got a lot of kind of ticks.
And there's ball 4. So Smoke is on base for the 3rd time today. That's 5 walks now for Met pitchers in this game. And here's Hernandez, who delivered a 2-run homer in the 4th inning that turned a 1-0 game into a 3-0 game. Hernandez is not technically a rookie, but he's got very little time under his belt in the big leagues. And here he is hitting cleanup for the Toronto Blue Jays. Started his career with the Astros, came over in trade last summer for Francisco Liriano when the Astros needed left-handed bullpen help. Granderson at third, Smoke at first with 1 out. And the curveball from Ramos misses, and he is struggling again. 2-0. There's a strike.
You know, all the guys that close games, and Ramos was a closer for the Marlins for quite some time, kind of adrenaline junkies, you know, and they love being out there when everything's on the line. And this is, can't have a more opposite kind of feeling right here.
It's like a fighter pilot flying a glider.
That's right.
2-2 to Hernandez.
But if you're Ramos, you gotta be mentally tough. Part of the reason you're pitching in some of these blowout games is because in tighter moments earlier in the season you struggled a little. You can find your way back out to the more important innings, but you have to perform.
Toward the hole, that'll find its way through for a base hit. Granderson comes in to score on the broken bat hit by Teoscar Hernandez, his third RBI of the afternoon. And the Blue Jays, with their third straight crooked number, now lead at 8-0.
I'll tell you, Teoscar is pretty impressive as Dave Island comes out to speak to his pitcher. I mean, I know he didn't hit it hard, and the ball's a good pitch, a pitcher's pitch in on him. But the strength, you got to appreciate a home run and the strength to get that ball through the infield.
Jacob Rame, who finished off the Mets' victory last night, now up again in the Mets bullpen. So Granderson, with a pair of doubles, has come home to score twice, enjoying his return to Flushing. And after the Mets put a blowout on the Blue Jays last night, they're having one return to them today. Jean-Hervé Solarte, who's gone 0 for 3. All the production for Toronto has come from the top of the batting order. Smoke at second, Hernandez at first with 1 out, 2 runs home in the inning. And a good off-speed pitch by Ramos. Well, somebody's having a nice afternoon.
I mean, not much unlike us when we have the King Cone occasionally in the press dining room.
I'm very impressed with the thoroughness with which that is being consumed. Don't leave a single speck.
You know, as a parent, you got to think, right? Do you continue to wipe?
Why?
Well, don't.
Why?
It's just going to end up the same.
Wait for the end.
Exactly.
Why do it 7 times?
I'm on the same game plan with you. Well,
yeah, but you don't want to get on the pants. That's
yeah, you got to put the napkin underneath the helmet, bro. But not his fault. You know, I mean, you get a little.
I like the fact that the sprinkles are orange and blue.
Oh, yeah,
that's very special. I mean, sprinkles, it really doesn't matter which color they are because they taste the same. Yeah. But from an aesthetic point of view, into the shift, Rosario has no one to throw it to. Does Cabrera get there? He did not, and everybody's safe. Well, that's the shift preventing the double play. And we've seen this before. If the shortstop playing on the second base side fields it, he's got nobody to throw to. Cabrera tried his best to get there, but didn't get there in time.
I mean, it's fielded to his left by Rosario with the shovel. I thought he got him at second base.
Did he get the foot to the bag?
I thought he did. Yeah, I thought he did. Let's see.
Well, the Mets are going to challenge the call. But it's a design flaw in double play situations, and we've seen this 3 or 4 times already this year.
That's right.
I'm not sure the ball was hit hard enough to turn 2 in a normal defensive structure. But because of the way the infield is shifted, if the shortstop fields the ball, there's no chance to get out at second base.
See, because there's a runner on second, you've got to play the third baseman closer to third. Although the score is 8-0, no one's going to be stealing. And what happens when the third baseman is over there, you don't have anyone in the middle left to try to compete. I thought he got him, but it's very close.
Well, it's an extraordinary play by Cabrera just to get there, and they do get the out. So that's a 6-4 force play as the Mets win the challenge. And I'm wondering, is there any way to mitigate that? I mean, as they continue to scientifically explore what produces the most outs, is there a way to design that kind of a shift to take that flaw out of it? Here's Kevin Pillar, who's 1 for 3.
Well, if there's no shift, it's the most tailor-made of 4-6-3s in the game. If there's no shift, right? That ball.
Say that again.
If there's no shift,
Right.
regular double play defense, that's a tailor-made double play, 4-6-3.
If it was hit hard enough. Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay.
That one sneaks up the middle, and Pilar's got another hit, and that'll bring in another run as Smoke comes in to score to make it 9-0.
That one's hit hard enough.
And Mickey Callaway is going to make a pitching change. So the Blue Jays piling it on. 2 in the 4th, 3 in the 5th, 3 home here in the 6th against Ramos, and Jacob Rain will come in to replace AJ on the mound. We'll be right back to Citi Field. Third, when we had an 18-minute delay for the grounds crew to fix the field. Zach Wheeler came out after the delay and nothing went right, and the Blue Jays have piled it on against the Mets bullpen and now lead it 9-0. Luke Maile up against Jacob Rain, who pitches for the 2nd time since his recall from Vegas.
Looked good in yesterday's game, finishing up the Mets a win. See his numbers so far. He's throwing a lot harder this year than he was last year when he came up at the end of the year, or traded for at the end of the year.
Well, if he sticks around long enough, he could face the guy he was traded for.
That's right.
He was traded for Curtis Granderson. Came from the Dodgers when Curtis was dealt to LA. He's facing Luke Maile here with 2 out and 2 on. Maile is singled and walked, and he fouls one back, and it's 1-2.
That's the closest one here to the booth that I've seen. I mean, just to the right, but it had our security officer that always protects us here, Al, should have been protecting himself on that one.
Getting rained on, getting baseball struck at him. It's a rough afternoon. Two coming, and that's smoked foul deep into the seats down the left field line. That make the upper deck?
Yes, it did.
That's a rarely visited area.
One dude up there.
That's a guy who did not expect to get a souvenir today in that portion of the ballpark. Rough bounce off the tarp there. I mean, you can learn how to play, you know, the sidewall.
Yeah.
The bad hop on the infield off the lip, but it's tough off the tarp. So it takes that swirling bounce. Nelly pops it up, and Cabrera takes charge of it. That retires the sign, but the Blue Jays tack on 3 against A.J. Ramos in the top of the 6th. Yeah, it's a perfect afternoon. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There's chocolate ice cream involved. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, the North Riverdale Baseball League in the Bronx, and the Elizabethport Little League from New Jersey took part in a skills clinic with Mets players and coaches at Citi Field. The group participated in drills and received tips from Mets players Robert Gazelman, Seth Lugo, Tomas Nido, and SNY's very own Nelson Figueroa. Hi, Nelson. It's his birthday on Friday.
Nelly?
Yeah. Happy
How many
advanced
candles?
birthday. I'm going to have to look it up.
He's young.
He's younger than us.
Still young. Yeah. That's everyone.
It's a little hard to keep a scorecard in the rain.
But that person is. And that's pretty cool.
I am very impressed.
Way to go, bro. Very nice.
Ahmed Rosario struck out in his only at bat today against Jay Happ, who is trying to snap an unsightly string for the Blue Jays, who have gone 12 straight games without getting 6 innings out of a starter. Happ's gone 5 scoreless today. Ball and a strike to Rosario. And Nelson's going to be 44 on Friday. It's young.
It's really young. So young, I can't remember being 44. When I started this job, I was 46.
Really?
Well, 45, because I turned 46 during the season.
Rosario skies one to shallow center. And Pilar staggers but makes the catch. 1 out. Well, the Blue Jays thought that they were going to have better starting pitching than they've had. Their bullpen's actually been pretty good, although now they're without their closer Roberto Ozuna after his arrest on an assault charge. The starter's ERA, though, has been ungodly.
And that's the whole season. They are starting pitchers in the last rotation around 0-4 with an ERA over 9. So let's say they needed this.
Juan Lagares, after a big night last night, has struck out in his 2 at-bats today. 2 of the 8 strikeouts for Happ. Yeah, a little chopper right back to the pitcher. Happ takes care of that for the 2nd out. He's now retired 7 in a row. So 2 out and nobody on. Now Cabrera. Flied one deep to center his last time up. 0 for 2 on the day.
Happ has really thrown maybe a half dozen to 10 breaking balls. All the rest have been mostly fastballs with an occasional changeup like that one to Lagares. Has kept it very simple in this bad weather.
Well, that's really been his pattern all year. 72% fastballs for the season. Maybe even more than that today. Well, tomorrow the Mets get another day off. They've had a whole slew of days off and rainouts. And after that, starting on Friday, they start a stretch of 18 games in 17 days. Donaldson throws out Cabrera. Side retired. 6 scoreless innings for Jay Happ. And we head to the 7th at Citi Field with the Jays cruising 9-0. To second base. Phillip Evans moves from left field to third. Brandon Nimmo comes in to play left as Cabrera gets a few innings off.
It's 2 games in a row for Cabrera getting some innings off. You like the way it played out yesterday better. So the Mets had a big lead.
Jacob Rame, who came on to get the final out in the 6th, stays on for the 7th to face Gio Urshela. The home plate umpire Nick Lentz running over toward the on deck circle to do some cleanup. Someone was sticking out of the ball bag.
No, he wanted to get some extra baseballs. The bat boy was negligent in his duties.
Unavailable.
No, he was just doing what he had to do.
Gio Urshela leads off and skies one foul. Urshela 0 for 3, struck out twice and flied out. And Jay Happ is out on deck. He's going to continue on.
Why wouldn't he?
Why not? Right? Working on a 2-hit shutout. And he's only thrown 82 pitches over his 6 innings. Urshela playing shortstop today for the Blue Jays, as we talked about last night. They have now used 7 different shortstops in the absence of Troy Tulowitzki, who is out again. Seems to be the mantra of his career. 10 times on the disabled list now, most recently with surgery on both heels. He had bone spurs removed. Popped up into shallow right, and Conforto comes on to get it.
I remember early in Tulowitzki's career, it wasn't even his fault. Remember, he got hit in the hands a couple of times with some broken bones that stalled his years, but then after that it was more chronic injuries.
Funny thing about him is that when you first looked at Tulowitzki and the way he played, he looked indestructible.
Yeah. Oh.
And he's been just the opposite. Yeah. Well, Jay Happ's not only had a good day on the mound, but he's also had a fine day at the plate, and he lines another base hit. How about that? A walk and now 2 hits for Happ on the afternoon, and he's enjoying playing in the rain.
This is the little league games I used to dream of. Having one in the major leagues. A couple hits, throwing a 2-hit shut piece.
He must have dreamed of having a Rick Wise game.
That's right.
No hitter with 2 home runs. Doesn't get any better than that. Unless maybe it was Tony Kleiniger.
What do you have, a grand slam?
2. 2 in 1 game.
Come on.
Curtis Granderson has doubled twice and scored 2 runs. Let's check in with Steve Gelbs. His report today is brought to you by Jim Beam. Steve?
Gary, we don't know all that much about Luis Guillorme, who's making his first major league start today, but the one thing that has followed him all throughout the minor leagues is just how good of a defensive player he is, just how good of a glove he has. And there was a great story actually written originally by Tim Healy in Newsday this spring about just how he developed those defensive skills. He was born in Venezuela, lived there until he was 12 years old, and at that time it wasn't as bad as it is right now, but it still wasn't all that safe to go outside. So his father took 2 rooms, knocked down a wall in between them, and made that the playroom for Guillorme inside his house. And he spent countless hours every day, he said, after school right until he went to bed, just throwing the baseball against the wall, throwing a ball against the wall, working on his reflexes. And he said that really is where it all started and how his defensive prowess was originally developed.
They developed that in high school in Florida before he was drafted. Meanwhile, Jacob Rame going after the guy he was traded for, Curtis Granderson. He works him to a full count. It's got to be a weird feeling.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Did you ever face Mazzilli?
Mazzo. Yeah, of course I did when he was in Pittsburgh. Couldn't wait to get him out. No, Mazzo was a good friend. He was in Philadelphia. In Pittsburgh, he would start occasionally, but more a guy off the bench.
And Rame walked him. Probably overthrew his fastball a little bit, trying to get Granderson out. And that is 6 walks for Met pitchers today. First one for Rame. Well, my intrepid stat man tells me that Mazzilli was 1 for 11 against you. So
1 for 11?
Obviously, you
Sorry,
handled that really well.
Sorry, Mazzo. We're still friends, right?
Dwight Smith Jr. running for Granderson. So Curtis, after a fine day with 2 doubles and a walk, is done with his series back in Flushing. And Josh Donaldson bats with 2 on.
I mean, I have to. I'm indebted to Mass forever. Would have never made it with the orange and blue. You know, he's the reason I had a chance to pitch in New York.
But you could have been a legend in Arlington.
I mean, legend in Arlington is like Charlie Pride. That's a legend in Arlington. Dallas Cowboys.
Nimmo squeezes the fly ball by Donaldson for the 2nd out. Well, I mean, Bobby Valentine was big in Arlington. Juan Gonzalez was big in Arlington.
I honestly loved Bobby V when he's our third base coach. When I was first brought up to the major leagues, the first
weekend that I spent in the major leagues, he invited me to his house. Ralph Frankel was over there for a cookout. He drove me back to
his father-in-law.
Yeah, his father-in-law drove me back to Queens afterwards, the hotel I was staying at, and I was like, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever done to me, because I was, no, I know you grew up in Queens, but I felt like I was stuck in Queens for the weekend. Didn't know where to go. Had the Buccaneer Diner at the end of the road. I knew I could go there. Astoria in what, 98th maybe?
All I remember about growing up in Queens is that everybody I knew wanted to live in the city, by which we meant Manhattan.
Manhattan, yeah. And you're in the city, but
yeah, but if you grew up in Queens, at least in that area, I don't know if they refer to it the same way now.
Yeah.
But when you said the city, you didn't mean Queens. Smoke takes a change up for a strike, and it's 2-1.
I know when I have friends from California or whatever, and they always say, God, what is it like to live in New York City? I said, I don't know. I know what it is to live in Manhattan, not New York City.
Buddy Bauman, who's yet to make his Mets debut, up in the bullpen. As rain comes back at 97 miles an hour to get even on Smoke.
Well, I tell you, Smoke is pulling the trigger today, isn't he?
Two out, 2 on, 2-2 to Smoke. And he pops this one up. Flores tracking it. Catches it in fair territory, and that retires the side. Rames strands a couple in the 7th inning. We're going to break out the baseball cards when we come back. Yes, it's gotten to that point. It's 9-0 Toronto, 7th inning stretch. The cards are coming. Play left field after pinch running for Granderson. Well, it's that point in the festivities this afternoon that the good folks from Topps have brought us a nice new box of baseball cards from recent or not so recent past. And Ronnie, what was your first card?
First, makes sense. We were just talking about Lee Mazzilli. So I just want to, the years he had in 78 and 79 for the Mets. So beautiful, especially 79. Had 15 home runs, 79 runs batted in, batted .303. And that's why he was the, dare I say, darling of New York all those years.
See, now the first card I pulled is Max Scarce.
Oh.
Max Scarce in a Phillies uniform, but Max Scarce, who would later pitch for the Mets. Who was Max Scarce traded for? Was it John Stearns?
Might have been.
Yeah, I think it was. And so I don't have really warm feelings about Max Scarce as a result of that.
You have to get all over those childhood feelings.
It wasn't Max's fault, but you see, actually, the picture is at Shea Stadium, even though he's in a Phillies uniform.
Yeah, that's funny. You know, what would happen in those days is that all the visiting teams, when they would come to New York, the photographers would be in New York. That's where they would take the pictures. So Yankee Stadium for most of the visiting players for tops, at Yankee Stadium for the AL teams, and NL teams would take it to Shea. That's what happened most of the time. So I got Ron Kittle. Do you remember Ron Kittle?
Sure, it's American League Rookie of the Year.
American League Rookie of the Year, 83, hit 35 home runs and 100. That's when he was Rookie of the Year. Struck out 150 times.
That's a lot.
Which was unusual in those days. But what I remember about Ron Kittle is that before he became that Rookie of the Year in Chicago, he was famous that their team in Denver would hit record home runs. The Denver Bears.
Before the Rockies.
The Mile High. Yep. Yeah, Greg Walker might have been on that team. Ron Kittle. So, yeah, nice.
Ron Kittle was like the next Bill Melton.
Who was the Rookie of the Year for just 1 year? Cleveland Indians.
Joe Charbonneau.
Joe Charbonneau.
Super Joe.
Super Joe.
Right. Guy who could open beer bottles with his eye.
What?
He used his eye socket to open beer bottles.
That's an old wives' tale.
No,
Can't be true.
No, I think there was actually video.
Video.
All right, I got another guy with a Mets connection, Darryl Knowles. You know what Darryl Knowles is famous for?
He pitched in every single game you could in the
1973 World Series. Became the first pitcher ever to pitch in all 7 games. Left-hander. He was just funky enough. He was in 52 games that year.
Yeah, he had like a little bit like.
This can't be right. This can't be right. 99 innings. He walked 49 batters in 1973.
Well, he was pitching around the right-handers to get to the left-handers. You know. The card I have became a really good friend of mine and a guy whose career is very underrated. Harold Baines played for the Chicago White Sox, then DH for other teams. Harold Baines, my favorite story, 2 stories about Harold. Harold taught me how to play golf because there was a lot of day games in Oakland and we had nothing to do because my family was here in New York. His family was in Maryland. So we would go to the public course in Alameda and he taught me how to play. But one of the things he did on the field, I'll never forget as long as I live. We were facing Nolan Ryan. He was in the Texas Rangers, with the Texas Rangers. DH was Harold Baines that night. I was sitting next to him on the bench. He 2 strikeouts in his first at-bats against Nolan Ryan. As Wilmer hits this ball, be caught in right field. And he said to me as he's sitting there, and he was the quietest person of all time, Harold. He couldn't get 2 words out of him. He said, he's going to throw me that changeup. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I'm sitting on that changeup. I said, you're sitting on Nolan Ryan's changeup? He said, yeah, he's going to throw me one. And when he throws it, I'm going to hit it. 1 3-run home run later in the next at-bat. Impressed me forever with Harold Baines.
Harold Baines, one of the few players to make the big leagues from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and one of the few players, maybe the only player, whose number was retired while he was still an active player.
That's right.
When he left the White Sox, they retired his number. He was still playing. I think he came back to the White Sox later, didn't he?
He just had, if you knew Harold, was to respect Harold. That's the kind of man he was.
Okay, so Max Scarce was not traded for John Stearns. He was traded with John Stearns for Del Unser, but this is the bad part.
Okay.
When they got Max Scarce, the guy they traded was Tug McGraw.
Oh, that's why you have ill feelings towards him.
All right, now here's I keep coming up with these people with Mets connections. Amos Otis, who started out his career with the Mets. In fact, he was on the team in early 1969. They tried to play him at third base. Remember the Mets, they had Wayne Garrett, who was a rookie, and Charles wound up playing there some. But they tried Amos Otis at third base early that year. It didn't work out so well, so they traded him to Kansas City, where he became an all-star.
Like one of the greatest center fielders. Well, maybe the greatest center fielder with Willie Wilson that the Royals have ever had.
Florida just got a piece to keep the bat alive.
Look at that classic stance. He was a great athlete out in center field. Made it look easy. So we were talking earlier, I don't know if it was today's game or yesterday's game, about how many littler players are excelling. The American League reigning MVP, of course, is Jose Altuve, Ozzie Albies, Mookie Betts, and others. Well, this was the smallest player of his day, Freddie Patek. Remember him?
5'4". He's shorter than all of them.
5'4", 140 pounds, and he played at an unusually high level with a great Kansas City Royals team.
The only shorter player that I can recall was the Angels outfielder in the 60s, Albie Pearson, who was 5'3", and he was so short that with the crowns on the field in those days, you could sit in the dugout and not see him.
Oh, jeez.
He'd disappear in the grass.
So for any of you kids that are not going to be unusually tall, baseball's the game for you.
All right, now I've got this is a classic for me because, well, for you too, because he's a figure from your childhood, but I've got him in a Phillies uniform. Jim Lonborg.
Oh boy!
After the skiing accident that cost him the greatness in his career, Jim Lonborg, who was the Cy Young Award winner in 1967, led the Red Sox to the Impossible Dream World Series. He was their best starting pitcher.
We would just I remember always being marveling at he could be that great of a pitcher, inspire so many of us to want to be a pitcher, and then become a dentist after everything was said and done. I mean, amazing. Jim Lonborg. That 67 team is the reason I fell in love with baseball. Yastrzemski in September.
What I remember about Lonborg in that 67 season is he had to pitch the final day to get the Red Sox into the World Series.
So
he couldn't pitch game 1 in the World Series. Jose Santiago did.
That's right.
And Lonborg pitched the second game, which meant that after he pitched game 5, as Evans strikes out to end the inning, he had to come back in game 7 on 2 days rest to go up against Gibson and the Cardinals.
Do you know Sam Ewing? I don't know him.
Charlie Spikes played for the Yankees. I got him in an Indians uniform.
Al McRae.
Bobby Heiss, good utility infielder. Steve Renko, big pitcher.
Amos Otis
the Mets and the Expos. Dick Sharon, don't know him. The original Pat Kelly with the White Sox.
This card is too nice.
Ike Brown, Ellie Rodriguez.
Coco Crisp. What a name.
Oh,
very nice.
Cavelli.
I mean, there's been some stops and starts for Bauman. He's been on the team, off the team, on the team, off the team, and finally gets in a ball game.
He's got the Sean Gilmartin stirrups going.
Yes, he does.
Pitched in one game for the Padres before the Mets got him on waivers. And he'll come in to face Teoscar Hernandez, who's already had a big day with a home run and a single. He's driven in 3. And Baum with that funky delivery fires a fastball for a strike. Hernandez in a 2-run homer in the 4th, walked in the 5th, singled in a run in the 6th. Blue Jays with 9 runs and 12 hits. The Mets have been shut out for 7 innings by Jay Happ, who struck out 10, matching his season high. Buddy Bauman, 30 years old, Missouri State University. Got in 23 games with the Padres last year. Brought up yesterday when Jerry Blevins went on the paternity list. I got a new batch of cards here.
Well, you do?
I do. The first one that I came up with here is Bobby Higginson.
Oh, yeah.
1997. The Mets played was the first year of interleague play, and they played a series in Detroit. They got swept in the 3-game series. The Tigers hit 14 home runs in the 3-game series. Bobby Higginson tied a major league record by homering in 4 consecutive official at bats over the course of 2 games. Nobody's ever hit home runs in 5 straight at bats. He came to the plate sitting on 4 straight home runs.
What did he do?
He took a call 3rd strike.
What? What?
Hernandez strikes out right on cue.
Oh, jeez.
Can you imagine?
No, I
You
can't.
got a chance to do something nobody's ever done before.
That would be the only time in your major league career that it doesn't matter where the pitch is, you're swinging right as hard as you can.
Well, if you walk, it keeps the streak alive, but it wasn't like it was 3-2.
I know. I wouldn't even think it keeps the streak alive. You got to do it in consecutive at bats. I would be swinging as hard as I could.
He had 27 that year. 70 walks. What a good year.
You know what I like about when we do the cards sometimes is that we can pay homage to some players that were really good that people don't always remember. And I have the Dickie Thon card, who played shortstop with the Astros. And in 1983, he had 28 doubles, 9 triples, 20 home runs, 79 RBIs, hit 286. But in 1984 was my first full year, and Mike Torres hit him in the face with a pitch ball, and Dickie just was never the same after that. And he was an elite player of his time. I can't keep it on our thing here because we got a lot of wind, but he was an elite player of his day, and it's nice to be able to remind people what he could have been, because he was great in that 1983 season.
I've got one. This guy I don't remember a lot about. You might remember him more than I do. Nice pickup by Guillorme, showing off that fine glove, and gets the second out on Solarte. Dick Drago pitched for the Red Sox and a bunch of other teams. I seem to remember him, pitching as a starter one day and then coming out of the bullpen the next day.
He was that rubber-armed guy when I was a kid that would never say no. Whatever they needed, he would do. They need 3 innings on Saturday, 5 on whatever. I think he had a couple seasons, though, where he had some a good number of saves, too. So, Dick Drago. Jeez.
Dick Drago. Oh, one of my personal favorites. What uniform is he wearing? Oh, he's wearing a Tigers uniform. Again, going back to the first year of interleague play.
Yeah.
Yankee Stadium. Striking out Derek Jeter to finish off a 9-hit shutout. Dave Malicki.
Oh, that's right.
Forever.
Wow.
Forever a fixture in Mets history.
He had a great curveball, didn't he?
A good curveball.
Yeah.
But just also like the nicest guy in the world. And it was a seminal event because it was the first game the Mets and Yankees had ever played that mattered. It was at Yankee Stadium, and it was 6-0. So by the time it got to the 9th inning, there were about 25,000 people left, and they were all Met fans. And the sound of Yankee Stadium that day cheering Dave Malicki on to the final out when he struck out Jeter to end it, something I'll never forget.
Wow. You know, when I was a kid, occasionally you'd get a few cents from your parents, so you go get the baseball cards. And I never was the kind of person that, okay, I hate this team, I like this team. Every card I got, I relished because it was the learning experience, right? Or maybe a player I liked or didn't like. But the best cards for me were the rookies to watch, players coming up, where they'd have a triptych of 3 different players on the card, and you could look at them and say, boy, these are the guys going to be the next great players. Very rarely were they, but it was nice to see.
Sometimes they were.
That's right.
Good inning for Buddy Bauman in his first outing as a Met. 1-2-3 with a couple of strikeouts. Still 9-0 Jays. Superb outing for Jay Happ. 7 scoreless innings, 2 hits, no walks, 10 strikeouts. Different matter for Zach Wheeler, who started well but finished poorly. Went 4 innings plus, allowed 6 runs and 7 hits. We go to the bottom of the 8th inning. The grounds crew, which has done yeoman work today, back out there again. Richard Urania comes in to play shortstop for the Jays. Gio Urshela moves to third base, and left-hander Aaron Loop will pitch the 8th inning for Toronto.
Aaron Loop, an unorthodox left-hander, throws from the side, but he's been a big part of this bullpen. 4 times he's thrown over 60 games out of the bullpen for the Toronto Blue Jays from Tulane University and Louisiana.
Luis Guillorme leads off for New York. He's 1 for 2 today, 3 for 4 now in his major league career. That's a .750 average. That'll get you in the Hall of Fame. And a fastball taken outside for ball 1.
Gary, I missed the whole inning while we were doing the cards, so give me Flores, Conforto, and Evans.
9.
Okay.
K looking, K swinging.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Guillorme hits one toward the middle of the diamond, flashing over Solarte to throw him out. 1 away. That's 12 straight Mets who've been retired. The last time anybody reached was Wilmer Flores, who doubled in the 4th. That's about a few of these games over the last 3 weeks. Been shut out 3 times. In fact, they got shut out 3 times in a 4-game stretch on that last homestand when they went 0-6. 1 laugher last night and behind in a laugher today. Jose Lobaton has struck out and grounded out 0 for 2.
Pretty amazing that Aaron Loup can throw as hard as he does from the side like that, 90+ miles an hour, with that unique style.
And he gets ahead on Lobaton 0-2. Well, looks like the Mets are going to have another relief pitcher come to bat. Buddy Baumann is on deck. It'll be his first big league plate appearance if he gets up there.
They're still looking for the first hit from these relievers, aren't they?
Well, they've had 16 plate appearances, which is the most in the majors. They had 18 all of last year. We've yet to play a quarter of the season this year, and Buddy Baumann is going to get the 17th plate appearance for a Mets reliever. Just off the corner to Lobaton, and it's 2-2, and I don't even know what to make of that.
Yeah, really, right.
I mean, part of it is that they've got relief pitchers going multiple innings more often than they have in the past. But they've also been involved in a bunch of lopsided games like this. Lobaton making his first start in 9 days as Devin Mesoraco has taken over the bulk of the catching duties since he switched clubhouses in Cincinnati. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when Kevin Plawecki finally comes back from his broken hand. See how the playing time gets distributed between him and Mesoraco as Lobaton strikes out for the second time today.
What's this motion? He kind of bends at the waist with that closed stance, and then just from the side he has a 3/4 delivery, but since he bends so far over the side, it almost looks like a sidearm delivery.
Phil Esposito batting for the Mets. No, it's Buddy Baumann.
Very nice.
And Baumann hits a little pop-up, shallow left center, and back goes Urena to get it, denying Buddy Baumann a hit in his first big league at bat. Let's go down 1-2-3 before Aaron Loup. We go to the ninth, 9-0 Toronto. Geico Sports Night rundown for 11 o'clock tonight. Latest on UNS Cespedes' trip to the DL and all the basketball and hockey news as well. Your Coors Light refreshing finish. Well, when we were done with the baseball cards, and occasionally we toss a couple out of the booth as we're going through them, and this fan was nice enough to retrieve one of the cards and then found out that we really didn't intend to keep them, and our cameraman Al decided to reward him with some more. Very nice. Luke Maley leads off in the top of the ninth against Buddy Bauman. Maley's 1 for 3 and a walk today. That is your Coors Light refreshing finish.
Sorry, Gary, I was away there. That's a little bit of a walk to the restroom, so I apologize.
That hasn't changed. Maley breaks his bat. He'll need a new one. Well, let's see. It's still raining.
Yeah.
Which means that there has not been a moment in this game, which started 3 hours and 7 minutes ago, when it has not been raining. We had an 18-minute delay that was not officially a delay. You know that, right? The 18-minute delay will actually be included in the time of game, so that when Major League Baseball goes back and looks at pace of play initiatives, they will be factoring in 18 minutes that the grounds crew took to fix the field as part of what supposedly was the time of the game.
That would be a good pace of play initiative to knock out right off the bat.
Make that an official delay and take it out of the time of game?
Yeah.
Well, bookkeeping. That's all that is bookkeeping.
That's right.
Maley hits one sharply, and he's got his second hit of the day. So after Buddy Bauman worked a 1-2-3-8, he gives up a hit to start the ninth. 13th hit for the Jays on the afternoon. And now Gio Urshela, who's trying to join the party, he's gone 0 for 4, including a couple of strikeouts.
Familia up in the pen, huh? I think probably just getting some work in before the off day, right?
He's gotten so little work this month that very similar to the game in Philadelphia, where he was brought into a lopsided game. Looks like he's going to be brought in again. Kendrys Morales is on deck to bat for the pitcher, and Urshela takes high for ball 1. And Bauman having trouble finding the strike zone. 2-0. Well, we were talking earlier about how the Indians have had the worst pitching in the American League this year. Not today. Trevor Bauer, 8 scoreless innings, 10 strikeouts. They shut out the Tigers 6-0. And that's the way it's supposed to go for them, right?
That's right.
So that gets Cleveland back to 500 for the season, which is good enough to lead their division.
I mean, Kluber, Bauer, Carrasco, Clevenger.
Fly ball down the line. Nimmo disappearing, and it's out of play.
Said before, the Dodgers have one more win than the Miami Marlins. On a pace for 63-95 are the Dodgers right now.
Question is, are they beyond repair?
Just got Turner back. That certainly is going to help.
Yeah, Justin Turner made his season debut last night, went 1 for 4. But the Dodgers lost their 5th in a row. Didn't they get swept by Miami?
I think they did, and then they got swept by the Reds. Yeah.
Right, and now it's, so they haven't beat the Marlins yet this year. That's drilled to deep center field. Lagares racing back to the track. Over the shoulder, he runs it down. Oh, but he hurt himself hitting the wall. Lagares with a fabulous catch, but then he bangs his knee against the fence, and let's see if he's okay.
I think he hit his foot underneath the padding. Like his left toe, it's almost like he jammed it into the cement wall underneath the padding. But what a catch. Matching Pilar's earlier in the game. See his left toe.
Oh, you're right.
You know,
he got caught up under the padding.
Yeah.
Well, a tremendous play by Lagares, and he's okay. Now Kendrys Morales is going to bat for the pitcher. Morales off to a very tough start, and he flies one out to center. Easier play this time for Lagares, jogging in, and Nimmo will take it instead. And Lagares thought it was the third out, but it's only the second out.
Hey, I'm going to give him a pass since he just almost broke his foot there. Jeez.
By the way, Morales batting for the pitcher, and you see he took out a little bit of the bottom of the padding there where his foot went in. And Dwight Smith Jr. will bat for the first time. Anyway, Jay Happ today, in addition to his pitching, had a walk and 2 singles. The first Blue Jays pitcher in history to get on base 3 times in a game. Now remember, their history goes back to 1977.
Still.
So there was no pre-DH Blue Jay pitchers who came to the play regularly. So it's all interleague play. But nonetheless, first pitcher in Blue Jays history ever to reach base 3 times in a game. Here's Lagares' catch again from the other side. Smith lines one toward the left field corner, and that ball is down for a base hit. Going to third is Maley. He'll be stopped there, and Dwight Smith Jr. has an opposite field double. Third double out of that leadoff spot today. Granderson had a couple of them.
Good hitting by Smith. Just went with that slider from Baumann down the line. Kept it fair.
So second and third and 2 out, and Richard Urena will bat for the first time. Urena started last night at shortstop.
Starting to rain a little heavier again.
I don't know. Lagares has been wearing the sunglasses all day in center field. He obviously has a line on a better forecast.
Yes. They're getting higher in the head, and now he's not blocking the NY, Gary, so you got to be happy about that.
Someday the sun will shine again. And Urena cracks one to deep left field. Back goes Nimmo, takes a look, and it's out of here. Richard Urena, his first home run of the season, the second in his big league career. It's a 3-run shot that puts the capper on a huge day for the Blue Jays. They lead 12-0.
Well, Baumann had just called Lobaton out to have a little conversation, and as soon as Lobaton sat down and gave the slider, Urena was all over it.
So the Mets put up 12 runs last night. The Blue Jays counter with a dozen of their own today. And now Justin Smoak, who was responsible for the first of those runs with the first inning home run against Zach Wheeler, added a 2-run double in the 5th. Crooked numbers littered across the scoreboard for Toronto. 2 in the 4th, 3 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, now 3 in the 9th.
Yeah.
And things not so pleasant for George Charles Baumann in his Mets debut. Two and two now to Smoak. Mets will have Rosario, Lagares, and Nimmo coming up in the bottom of the ninth. And now full count to Smoke.
Fall through by Urania. Very Donaldson-like. He's had a big influence with a lot of these hitters over here, letting the bat go as soon as they make hard contact.
It's like Justin Turner.
All right. Yeah, the Blue Jays have a trips or a set of threes up there. Never good for the opposition.
Baumann takes care of Smoke to end the inning. But the 3-run homer by Urania extends the Toronto lead to 12-0. Today, what a performance by the grounds crew, which has had to work long, hard, and steadily to keep this field in good enough shape to get through well, 8.5 innings so far. And the pride of Manhasset High School, Danny Barnes, is on to pitch for the Blue Jays in the ninth.
Well, Scott Bradley, who's the coach of the Princeton baseball team, has produced a lot of major leaguers in his 21 years down at that helm, and Danny Barnes being one of them.
Now, Danny Barnes is the first big leaguer in Major League Baseball from Manhasset High School.
Really?
But not by any means the most prominent athlete.
Oh, who is?
You know who went to Manhasset High School?
No.
The greatest football and lacrosse player in
history.
Oh, Jim Brown.
Wow. I did not know that. That's amazing. Manhasset, now that's where they have all those expensive shops. Benihana's on the other
Miracle
side.
Mile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now I know where it is.
Now you know where it is. New Hyde Park, Manhasset.
Yeah, I know. I'm more of a diner guy there, the one on the corner.
Well, the last 14 Mets have been retired. Jay Happ went 7 scoreless. 1-2-3 inning for Aaron Loop in the 8th. Last man to reach was Wilmer Flores, who doubled back in the 4th. In fact, the Mets have had only 2 base runners all day. Into this day, much rain has fallen. Ahmed Rosario pops up the first pitch by Barnes. On that wet infield, Urania comes hustling in to get it. And on one pitch, Barnes has got his first out.
Well, just thinking that a former Princeton baseball player was in the news. Major League Baseball hired Chris Young to be vice president. I'm not sure. Pace of play, a lot of different things. He's going to have his hands in a lot of different things, which is great. Because,
perfect guy for the job.
Yeah, great guy. Smart guy.
Nobody is more studious about things like that than Chris Young. So that's a nice call by Major League Baseball. Here's Jay Bruce batting for Juan Lagares. It's an interesting turn at bat here. I guess Lagares banged up enough that he couldn't take the turn at bat, so Bruce in his stead after Lagares jammed his foot into the fence, making that catch a few moments ago.
That's where you don't say it, but underneath your breath, when the manager comes and says you're hitting second in the ninth, you go, really?
Well, there were two other available players on the bench, Adrian Gonzalez and Devin Mesoraco, but it's Bruce who gets the call here. Jay started last night, went 1 for 5. Danny Barnes got in 60 games for Toronto last year. This is his 17th appearance this year. He's been up and down a couple of times.
I don't know if he's trying to throw a split or a change.
Swing. By the way, Dave Freed wants me to tell you, he's desperate for me to tell you that not only did Jim Brown go to Manhasset High School,
yes,
but so did the actor Ken Howard, the White Shadow.
Oh.
Are you happy, Dave? He's so happy. He said it's his personal hero, and he would have been very upset if I didn't mention that. Ken Howard, who recently passed away.
He
right?
recently passed away. He was the president of the Screen Actors Guild for many, many years. The White Shadow, though, that show took place in Los Angeles, right? That was a Los Angeles inner city school, not New York school.
Can't tell you. I don't think I ever watched it.
Oh, it was a cool show.
Was it?
Yeah.
I mean, Freed.
You and Keith are too busy watching cartoons. Once in a while, you could put on a regular show.
Freed believes that he was the greatest basketball coach ever. Bruce pulls one foul.
Dave Freed, who just put up one of his notes, and it was salami.
What does that mean?
It was one of the characters on the show.
I had no idea what he's talking about.
And, you know, it was not a PC time, you know, so salami was the Italian kid on the team. You know, so there's Dave.
The problem when Dave puts up one of those notes is you can't read his handwriting. But then when he says it to you, you can't understand what he says. So it's a communication issue.
You know, I'm from Massachusetts, so I'm really trying to get Dave, who's working the Celtics LeBron series.
Right.
I want to say Cavaliers series, but it's Celtics LeBron series.
One player.
If Cleveland has any chance.
And Bruce goes down swinging for the second out. So the Mets are down to their final out of the afternoon as Bruce stalks off. And here's Brandon Nimmo up for the first time. Well, the Blue Jays are 1 out away from their elusive first ever victory in Flushing. The 22nd year of interleague play, and the Blue Jays are right on the cusp of finally winning a game by Willets Point.
All it took was 3.5 hours of unplayable conditions to allow them to get their first win.
I mean, that infield is underwater again. And they've gone through most of their 40 pallets of Diamond Dry. And there will be more to come before we play baseball again here on Friday night.
If they put the tarp on, how long do they have to wait to read? No, I'm kidding.
That's not even slightly funny, Ronnie. And Nimmo keeps this game alive. I'm watching each foul ball and the scramble for it, because most of these balls are going into the stands in areas where The seats are wet but unoccupied.
You love when it kind of rolls away from the old folk and goes to the young kid. Just
Kid's got better speed anyway.
Just love it.
Old guy never had a chance. Here's the 0-2, and that sails away.
I think Barnes has to have friends here and family, and they've been waiting all day, and they get to watch him in the ninth.
Well, the Mets have not won back-to-back games since their 9-game winning streak ended on April 14th. And apparently, they're not going to do it today. Two to Nimmo, and he wastes that one away. It's a funky looking changeup that Barnes throws.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. He takes kind of a Vulcan grip in there. I'm not sure what it is, but it's either a hybrid split finger kind of changeup.
It's not a churve, is it?
No, not a churve.
And Nimmo pops one up. Maley hoping for a play, but that's into another section. Come on, go get it. Where'd it go? Did it roll? It's got no competition yet. Oh, well, here comes the sniper. There we go.
Nice perseverance.
Well, before this game is over, Nimmo's going to provide a souvenir for every fan who wants one.
Again.
Oh, pushing the umbrella out of the way.
The poncho cape. Nice look, bro.
Yeah, except for the other part of the costume. Not so nice. Very happy with his reward, though.
Hey, listen, you wait out 9 innings of this.
Deep to left field. Smith goes back to the wall. It's out of here. Brandon Nimmo down to his final strike, breaks up the shutout with his second home run of the year. And the Mets finally have a reason to smile. At least Nimmo does. He always has a reason to smile. What's happening here?
They're going to do the whole Full Metal Jacket
right now.
Yeah,
2 out in the ninth.
Oh yes, Gary. The Full Metal Jacket. Once you mentioned that the infield was shiny, you know how much power you have. As soon as you mentioned that, they started getting that machine revving. They got the pallets down, and they are carrying the Diamond Dry out here.
This is really unexpected, I have to say. I mean, Nimmo had a 9-pitch at bat, hit a home run to extend the game, and so more Diamond Dry.
Look at Gibby. He doesn't even know what to say.
Well, it gives us time to talk about John Gibbons.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a great note from Elias today. This was fantastic. John Gibbons caught 18 games for the Mets in his career, and when Gibbons made his major league debut in 1984, the second game he caught, he was 21 years old, and his battery mate was Dwight Gooden, who was 19.
Wow.
40 years between them. There were 2 younger starting batteries in Mets history. They both came in 1965. When Greg Goosen, who was 19 years old, caught 20-year-old Rob Gardner and 21-year-old Tug McGraw.
Really?
Greg Goosen, the next spring, he goes to spring training with the Mets, and Casey Stengel says, Greg Goosen is 20 years old, and in 10 years he's got a real good chance to be 30.
Nice.
One of the great lines of all time.
I will tell you, there's a handful of guys in all of baseball, and I'm not kidding about this, that could hit a home run in a 12-0 game than Brandon Nimmo. He is always on point and always grinding, and he figured out how to flip one out. And Gibby's trying to ascertain what's going on.
He wants to get the ground screw off the field so this pitcher doesn't have to stand around and wait to get the last out. And Bill Welke is very unhappy after standing out in the rain all day.
He's probably telling Gibby, why don't you put out a pitcher out there that won't give up a home run in a 12-0 game with 2 outs?
I'm glad Gibby finds the whole thing amusing.
You know, Gibby had one of the greatest home run first by Nimmo. Fastball by Barnes. Nimmo with that inside out swing with some pop in the rain. And flipped it into the front row. Gibby was involved in that play. I don't know if you remember it. It was in 84 or 85, I'm not sure. But it was a double play to end the game on a base hit to center field in San Diego.
Yes.
Where they had to play it home from Lenny.
And then a third.
And then he tagged. Flannery had the hit. He tagged the guy out at home, then got up and somehow made a throw to third where they doubled off Flannery, who was trying to take the extra base, and it was the end of the game. It was the funniest end of the game I had ever seen.
Now Wilmer Flores will try and keep this game going. And he drives one toward the left field corner, and that's down for a base hit. And so Wilmer has his second double of the day. And the Mets are keeping this afternoon alive. Well, the Mets only had 2 hits for the first 8 2/3 innings. Now they have a home run and a double. The home run by Nimmo means City will donate enough for No Kid Hungry to provide 20,000 meals to kids in need. Now Michael Conforto, who's 0 for 3 today. Danny Barnes easily got the first 2 outs in this 9th inning. The third one's been tougher to come by. And he gets ahead of Conforto with the changeup, and it's 0-2.
Yeah, when that pitch is down, it's a good pitch for Barnes.
Two to Conforto. Michael keeps it going. Phillip Evans would be next. Low flyer. Little tapper, and Bailey goes out to get it, and that puts an end to the afternoon. A rainy afternoon works in favor of the Toronto Blue Jays. 7 scoreless innings from Jay Happ, and a whole lot of Toronto offense as they wallop the Mets 12-1 to get their first ever win in Flushing and split the 2-game series.
And it's Danny Barnes from Manhasset that ends that streak for the Toronto Blue Jays. Justin Smoke had a great game, starting the game off with a home run off Wheeler. Wheeler had 2 different starts, really. First 3 innings, and then he ran out of what he had in the first 3 in the 4th and 5th. And after that, a rout for John Gibbons' team.
Today's game summary presented by Jeep as Toronto wins at Citi Field. They were 0-9 at Shea. They were 0-3 at Citi Field before they finally win in this neck of the woods. Jay Happ gets his 5th win with 7 scoreless innings, struck out 10, as the Blue Jays, after losing 12-2 last night, win 12-1 today. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by Spectrum. Hey, Mets fans, get the best TV, internet, and voice service today at Spectrum.com. By Cash for Life from the New York Lottery, you could win $1,000 a day for life. And by Geico, over 75 years of savings and service. Well, the grounds crew has been doing heavy lifting all day, and their work is not yet done. The tarp is on a roll. Final score this afternoon, Blue Jays 12 and the Mets 1. Mets open a series at home against the Arizona Diamondbacks Friday night. Jacob deGrom pitches against Zach Godley. Our coverage begins Friday night at 6:30 right here on SNY. Now for Ron Darling, Steve Gelbs, and our entire SNY crew, I'm Gary Cohen at Citi Field. Time for WB Mason post-game live. Let's join Gary Apple and Nelson Figueroa in the studio. Take it away, guys.